areas through Saturday evening and overnight, bringing with it a lot of low cloud. So quite a dull and misty night across the UK on Saturday night, with some outbreaks of quite heavy rain persisting in the southeast. But again, it'll be another mild night, temperatures well above average for the time of year. So a dull and misty start to Sunday, but by and large Sunday will turn out to be the better day of the weekend. However, we will see some outbreaks of heavy showers starting to develop across the southeast. So as we head through Sunday and then into Monday, we continue to see the risk of heavier showers with the best of the sunshine across the west. I'll see you later.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Coronation Eve and the countdown to the biggest constitutional event of the century so far. On Mark Dolan tonight, in a special 3-hour show live from Buckingham Palace, we've got the pundits, the royal experts, the journalists and the biographers. And we've got you, the great British public, for what will be 3 hours of anticipation, excitement and celebration. It's the party of the year, so bring a bottle and maybe a flag, and I'll see you after the headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good evening, I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. The Labour Party has made significant gains in the local elections in England and is now the largest party at local government level. With just 8 out of 230 councils still left to declare their results, Labour has so far gained control of 21, while the Liberal Democrats have gained 11. The Conservative Party has lost control of 45 councils and more than 1,000 seats. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has admitted the results are disappointing.
The message I am hearing from people tonight is that they want us to focus on their priorities and they want us to deliver for them. And that's about halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the boats. That's what people care about, that's what they want us to deliver, and that's what I and the government are going to work very hard to do.
Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer believes the Labour Party is on track to win a majority in the next general election.
We've just taken Medway for the first time since 1998. That is a very, very good night for the Labour Party. And it's the same story elsewhere. Same story in Plymouth, in Stoke, up in Middlesbrough. And these are the key battlegrounds as we go into the next election.
And the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, said the Conservatives should be worried.
These are some of our best ever results. They give us a great foundation for the next general election. There'll be Conservative MPs across the blue wall seats, across many of these areas, who will be really, really worried now that the Liberal Democrats could beat them at the next general election.
The top news story this evening. On the eve of the King's coronation, the King and the Prince and Princess of Wales have greeted well-wishers on the Mall.
Congratulations, you look much younger in the flesh. And best of luck for tomorrow.
King Charles made a surprise appearance to meet with some of the thousands gathered outside Buckingham Palace. William and Kate joined the King for the walkabout. They praised the party atmosphere on the Mall and described the coronation as a great moment of celebration. The trio shook hands and took selfies with the crowds, and there were cheers of God Save the King. The royalists who've been camping out hoping to catch a glimpse of history being made this weekend have described it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
We were literally just walking back to the hotel and then we just saw everybody cheering and came over and then saw the King.
And I got a shake of the hand.
You got a shake of the hand?
Yeah, through the crowd and I got a shake of the hand.
I think this is Britain at its best, you know. Everybody's nattering to everybody. There's no stiff upper lip. It's just lovely.
We just wanted to be a part of history and enjoy the you know, nobody does it better than the British. So we wanted to see all the excitement and be a part of it.
In other news, the World Health Organization has announced that COVID-19 no longer represents a global health emergency. It's a step towards the end of a pandemic that has killed nearly 7 million people globally. But the director insisted countries shouldn't let down their guard, warning the virus is here to stay. You're up to date on GB News. Now let's get back to Mark.
It's Coronation Eve and the countdown to the biggest constitutional moment of the century so far. On Mark Dolan tonight, in a special 3-hour show live from Buckingham Palace, we've got the pundits, the royal experts, the journalists and the biographers. And we've got you, the great British public, for what is a night of anticipation, excitement and celebration. In my big opinion, my appraisal of our new monarch, is he up to the job? I'll be giving my unapologetic verdict shortly. In my take at 10, I'll be making the case for Queen Camilla. It's my view that she will be the jewel in the crown of this new monarchy. We'll be joined by Britain's most feared and revered royal biographer, Tom Bauer, Prince Andrew's best mate, socialite and dropper of truth bombs, Lady Victoria Hervey, former national newspaper editor and the First Lady of Fleet Street, Eve Pollard, Diana's former bodyguard, Ken Worf, the Queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Scofield, a man who knows the royals better than they know themselves, Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, plus ex-military man Ben Abasi-Jekti, historian David Oldroyd Bolt, and ex-royal journalist Linda Jubilee. It's a cast of thousands, and they're all live with me here at the Palace. Now, look, I want to hear from you throughout the show, Mark at gbnews.uk. This hour we'll be asking, will being king change Charles? Has the job come too late for our new king? And will the coronation unite the United Kingdom? You won't want to miss a second of the action. We've got ringside seats. Let's go. And kicking off the pre-match action is revered and feared biographer Tom Bauer, who is the author of Rebel King, The Making of a Monarch, which I've just finished, an absolute page-turner. Tom, welcome to the Palace.
Thank you.
Good to see you. First of all, I just saw Charles go by a couple of hours ago. He gave me a little wave, I think. Probably a GB News fan. Does he want this?
Oh, he wants it desperately. He's wanted it so much, and to his misfortune, his parents, there was a dinner for Prince Philip in his 95th birthday at Travellers, and someone said, will Charles be a good king? And his father said to his hosts, the only reason the Queen and I continue to live is to prevent Charles becoming king. Right. And that was the barrier to him becoming the monarch. So he wants it badly. He's now freed from his parents' supervision, so to speak, and that's gone. I think the legacy of Diana is finally being extinguished, or he will try his hardest to extinguish it. So he's finally got to where he wanted to be probably 20 years ago.
Is there some bitterness in his heart that it's come this late?
Well, it's very hard to say bitterness because, after all, he had to wait for his mother to die. I think that he would have, because he's a sort of passionate historian in many ways, he would have liked to have come to the throne earlier, so there will be a long Carillion era, so there'll be some sort of historical legacy which he's now going to try to cram in, except I think he's a bit too tired for it, a bit too old to actually impose himself the same way as his mother did.
Does he deserve to be king?
Well, I'm a monarchist, and therefore I think the hereditary principle should run, but I don't think that he's going to be the sort of person who can unite Britain as his mother did. I think he's been far too controversial, far too difficult. There's far too much of a footprint and a legacy over these last 50 years of all his campaigns and all the people who he really insulted to actually warm the British public towards him. But I think the majority of Britons do want a monarchy, and they'll tolerate him rather than love him.
As Prince of Wales, he lived in the shadow of Princess Diana. Will he live in the shadow of his son, Prince William, and his daughter-in-law, Kate, when he is finally coronated tomorrow?
Well, I don't think it'll be so much a shadow, but he relies on them desperately, because in the end, the polls have all shown that the young people and diverse community in Britain is pretty Republican, pretty anti-monarchy, and William could win those people over. I think Charles is far too old and set in his ways to win them over. And of course, he lives with a terrible legacy now of Meghan saying that the royal family is racist, which is a complete calumny, completely untrue. But he arrived on the throne with so many minuses that it's hard to see that he can shine except through William and Kate, who are remarkably popular and rightly popular. And to some extent, it is in a way a shame that we don't go straight from the Queen to William and Kate, because they would have really given the monarchy huge amount of vigour.
Might they be the joint elephants in the room as the king ages, with the public thinking, come on, Charles, make way for these two?
Well, I think time will tell. I think abdication in the grounds of old age is unlikely. And what's very interesting is...
And the Queen set that precedent, of
exactly.
course.
But what's interesting here, and no one wanted the Queen to abdicate, that's the point. But I think what's interesting is how Kate and William are constantly pushed forward by the palace because they realise that Charles cannot actually win over people, and I think he himself knows that. I mean, he's not a populist. He's a passionate person about all his interests, but he isn't someone of the people, although he tries hard. And actually, when he meets the people, on the whole, people who meet him like him very much because he's very interested in people and he cares for their problems.
So you think he's interested in people, but you don't think he's got the common touch?
Well, not only doesn't he have the common touch, but he doesn't want to be common, and he doesn't want to be in touch.
Yeah.
He's a sort of very perfectionist he's very sort of hypochondriac and awfully careful about where he goes. But on the other other hand, he's about 74.
Yeah.
And his wife is not in the best of health, I don't think, and so it's very difficult for them to have the energy to engage with young people, which Kate and William can do.
Now, are you not a little harsh on the King in terms of his energy? Because many people would suggest that there are parallels with Donald Trump, again, a man well into his mid-70s who has unending energy. Don't you think Charles is of the same ilk?
Well,
this is a famous workaholic, a guy who falls asleep in the dead of night reading his letters.
Absolutely, and writing his letters, absolutely. And I think he has that sort of energy, and I think he has energy when he goes on his walkabouts and visits people. But there's a limit to how much he can do. I mean, the limit is he works perhaps 6 months of the year, and the rest of it is spent in Balmoral or Highgrove or Sandringham or somewhere else. And I think that he can't do it full time, and nor does he want to.
Do you think he'd like an early night tonight, for example?
I think tonight he'll do his normal routine. He'll have one martini, he'll have a second martini, he'll be enormously excited. After all this, tomorrow, he's been preparing this for 20 years, been going through all the books, all the old manuscripts to see how a coronation should be organised. He's orchestrated it to perfection. He's going to see his theatre, his play, his performance tomorrow played out.
We could easily do an hour on your fantastic book, Rebel King. I won't plug it too much because you've had plenty of sales already, but I would recommend it. Here's a quote from the book. By relying on sycophants willing to tolerate his tirades and his rejection of any criticism, Charles has made damaging mistakes. His grudges and disloyalty have deprived him of wise advisors.
Yes.
So what do you think about his inner circle right now, and will they show him the way?
Well, I think what happened was that book, if I may be so modest, changed Charles dramatically. Because the source of that particular paragraph, as many others, were people who'd worked for him and were outraged by his behaviour. And most important of all, were fed up that he hadn't sent them a Christmas card after he fired them. That seemed to play heavily.
Because he does cut quite a disloyal figure in this book.
Very disloyal.
He's a decent guy, but he's not really got your back.
Well, he not only has him on the back, he'll stab you in the chest if you said no to him. And that is what weakened him as the Prince of Wales, that he wouldn't listen to good advice. I think that he's changed. He's listening to advice now because he has no alternative.
Has the missus changed him? We know he's domestically happy now, but has Camilla influenced Charles?
Oh, of course. There's no doubt that he's much happier.
But women don't have that power over men, do they?
Oh, absolutely. Well, then you haven't met the right women.
Let me tell you, my house is not a democracy.
Exactly. No, I mean, Camilla is one of those wonderfully country, sensible women, take no nonsense, take no quarter, and play it hard when it's necessary, and give love also when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
And she's given him enormous support. But always remember about Camilla, I know you think that her great love was not Charles, her great love was Andrew Parker Bowles.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't have dreamt of marrying Charles at that moment, and she wouldn't have been married to him now if Andrew Parker Bowles had been a faithful husband.
Well, there you go on that bombshell. More to come from Tom Bauer. Also, Fleet Street legend Eve Pollard. Has the job come too late for King Charles? And does our new king have a good relationship with the press? All of that next. Oh, and by the way, here's me mingling with the great British public. Take a look. What kind of king do you think Charles is going to be?
Well, I think he's had a lot of practice. I think he's going to be very good, and I think Queen Camilla is going to be great alongside him too.
Well, you look at the man he is, the character that he is. I mean, he's fantastic. He's an environmentalist. He cares about the community. He cares about all faiths. He's involved. He has an opinion, and it's a solid opinion. And he takes that in his role as his king. I think that's what we have to look at, who he is.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "No, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight, and it is a Coronation Eve special, the countdown to the coronation. I've got Tom Bauer with me, fearsome royal biographer, and I'm delighted to say the First Lady of Fleet Street, former national newspaper editor Eve Pollard. Eve, great to have you here with us at the Palace.
Lovely to be here.
What's your appraisal of Charles's relationship with the press?
I think it's getting better. I mean, I think that he went through a very difficult period with the whole Diana thing. He was cast as the baddie.
Yeah.
He's now happily married. I think Camilla has an enormous influence over his life. I've invited her to a thing that I found called Women in Journalism. She has come to our talk. She's talked to journalists. She's met journalists. She's invited us back to Dumfries House, where we had an Afghani female journalist. We talked about the problems about Afghanistan, but the problems are all over the world, including Britain, getting a fair story written. And she reads newspapers. She's interested. I think she's changed his attitude towards the press. I think she's felt us to be warm towards her, and the press has grown to love her. And I think she's saying it'll be all right.
And as a former national newspaper editor, you will be able to confirm just how important it is for this new king to have a good relationship with the press. It's a necessary evil. He has to accept the role of the press in his monarchy, in his reign.
I think he's always had to. I mean, even in the bad old days, he just had to accept it. But of course, we're now in the sunny uplands. Look at all these people here in the Mall waiting for this. Let's hope tomorrow goes well. I think he's always had problems with people not seeing his point of view, but so many of his points of view have turned out to be true, like climate change, like talk to your garden, like don't put crap fertilizer on things in, farms. He's actually, some of the things people used to think were mad, horrible architecture, they're all right at the top of our list, aren't they?
Although, on those matters, does he now need to wind his neck in as monarch? And will he? He has, but it's been about 10 minutes, Eve.
No, it's been about 8 months.
Can he sustain that?
Of course I think he'll sustain that. He'll probably talk to Prince William and say, would you have a go about this? Because he's in the position that he was in, Prince of Wales. You can have a little go.
Well, Tom Bauer, let's talk about that. Is there a danger that Charles will use the Prince of Wales, his son William, to do his dirty work and to pursue the net zero agenda? Some people might think that's the way to go, but it's very politically contentious. It's even scientifically debated. But is there a risk that Charles politicises William?
Well, I think it'd be too late for that. I mean, William is a completely different animal to Charles. I mean, Charles studied that from a very young age on, and I think William isn't interested in taking up his father's causes. He wants his own causes, he wants his own charities. So I think that what I think more likely is that Charles will, when the honeymoon is over, begin trying to influence politicians and people again. I don't think he'll be able to resist. He'll summon people to Buckingham Palace, to Clarence House, to Highgrove, and try and urge them to follow his views, as he did in the past about fox hunting, natural medicines, a whole slew of issues which he was completely wrong to try and get involved.
So you think he won't be able to help himself? In 2018, he was interviewed and said, look, when I'm king, I'm not stupid, I won't be political, I won't be the campaigning king.
I won't be the meddler.
The meddler, right? But you're not having that. You think that eventually he'll return to form?
I don't think he can change his spots. I think in the end...
he's getting older. I think he's got a wiser wife now. I think that also, I mean, net zero, of course, is sort of an idea that, as you say, is now being challenged in various ways. But he's cast his stone. He'll do other things. He's going to have to try and keep the Commonwealth, not just the 14 realms, but these 56 countries that are involved in this Commonwealth. He's going to have a lot else to do.
Do you think that there'll be some degree of partnership between the King and the Queen and the Prince and Princess of Wales, that they're almost the new Fab Four?
Well, the problem nowadays is it's all about optics, and of course Prince and Princess of Wales just look young, look glamorous, look fashionable, and he is a man in his 70s. This is the problem. When you get older, you'll learn about this, Mark.
Well, yeah, you've got some particularly gorgeous children, so I see the problem. But I mean, that's in the end, these two. William strikes me as naturally loyal to his father,
I think that's true.
Unlike perhaps his brother. And Kate, the dutiful princess. So do you think that it's going to be a good relationship, that foursome? Because I think that Charles, if he's right, particularly given his age, will deploy them to do some of the heavy lifting.
I think he will, but I think there's enough heavy lifting for all of them to go round. I think that Charles knows that he's got to be careful. I mean, he did that great big thing about inviting everybody to the COP meeting, and they all turned up.
Yeah.
And of course they will. He's king. He's in charge. Ish. But I mean, the fact is, I think William's got his own ideas. I agree with Tom. William will do what he wants to do, the earthshot, the things that he's interested in. Then he's got grandchildren, you know. You blink, and William will be 19. And that he'll take over doing different things that he's interested in.
Do you think that the king has some kind of plan? Do you think, you know, presidents, when they enter the White House, they have the first 100 days? I mean, do you think that Charles has got a plan?
I think he had a plan just to somehow reassure this country after the death of his mother, because we all adored her and she did an amazing job. And I think he's done it quite well.
And what about his PR? I mean, do you think the public like Charles, or are they just grudgingly accepting him? Is he still in the honeymoon period?
I think he has been in the honeymoon period. It depends. I think people will be quite impressed possibly by tomorrow. I don't think people realise how diverse, how amazing some of the people are who are coming. I mean, there was a wonderful boy on the radio who had helped other leukemia victims when he himself was ill. And he's been actually invited. He's not from a typical white British background, and he's coming tomorrow. I think they've played this coronation rather cleverly.
Indeed. Tom Bauer, let's talk about, and it's interesting that Eve mentioned diversity there, and that was something that was notable during the very sad funeral for the Queen, is the very diverse population that queued up to pay their respects to the Queen, which rather destroys the narrative that Britain is some kind of racist hellhole. We are a global beacon of diversity, and it was demonstrated at the Queen's funeral. Will we see it again tomorrow? We will, and I think, you know, especially because Charles, to his credit, has reached out to all the different religions, Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims, Jews, everyone. He's got them all participating tomorrow. But I think as well, you know, in the end, we are a European nation, and I don't believe he's going to play this sort of woke diversity card. I think that there was too much fuss about his saying, well, research the reparations. I mean, why? He can't say don't research it, but it doesn't mean actually going to do anything which is actually going to act against the interests of Britain. And in the end, you know, the truth is that tomorrow will be
a union of all Britons. And I don't think we should allow the Republicans and the anti-Britons, Britons and the left and all the rest of it, to derail what in the sense is the heart of this country, which is a monarchy, a belief in democracy, a liberal democracy, a tolerant democracy, but in the end, a country which is not a socialist, claptrap, communist edifice, but is a capitalist country, a compassionate country. And I think Charles personifies that the best way he can. The problem is in his life that he's often acted against the interests of both the monarchy and the country by going off on his own hobby horses.
Hence the title of the book being Rebel King, previously Rebel Prince.
Because he wanted to change Britain, but not often in his own image. Yeah. And the question really is, if he has a weak Prime Minister, if he has an establishment that doesn't know where they're going, I think Charles will instinctively try to influence the direction of Britain. And that's when it becomes possibly dangerous.
Well, it's very interesting because I've been obviously swatting up on Charles as Prince of Wales before becoming king. And there was one suggestion from one of the books that I was reading that actually if Charles had been king when Tony Blair sought agreement, permission, sign-off to do the Iraq War, that he'd have had much more of a grilling from Charles than he did from Queen Elizabeth.
And from the leader of the opposition at the time. I mean, the truth is that Charles, with many other military people, knew, as did the Chief of Staff, Michael Boyce, said to Blair at that time, you can't do it. No. And I agree with you on that. He might well have taken far greater interest, but we don't know what the Queen said. I mean, those conversations are quite private. We don't
and she
know.
Was no pushover.
And she was not. But in the end...
Well, I mean, look at her. She advised, I think, somebody in the middle of the talks trying to sort out Ireland. Go and see Varadkar. I mean, I think the Queen was much more influential than we know, but it was a different way of doing things. She was in a different age, and we didn't find out what was going on. I bet Charles gives the Prime Minister a much bigger grilling.
Well, we know that when Blair was Prime Minister, he tried very hard to argue on behalf of the army, on behalf of these fish, these birds, all sorts of equipment problems, the spider letters. In fact, the spider letters show that he was very concerned.
Yes.
He wasn't interfering. And I think that he will challenge. The question is whether he knows the boundary. That is.
Is he an egomaniac? I mean, what do you think about that?
I don't think he's an egomaniac at all. I mean,
wagging his finger about modern architecture. Who's he to tell architects what our city should look like?
NIMBYism is because hideous flats have been built cheaply and whatever, and so people say we don't want that in our backyard. Actually, there should be various competitions. People should be asked what they would like in their backyard. We might build a few more houses.
Well, I'm delighted to say that Eve Pollard and Tom Bauer return in just a couple of minutes. But next up, I'll be asking the former top military man, Ben Obsijekti, could environmental protesters spoil the party tomorrow? Plus the importance of the military to King Charles. And will the coronation unite the United Kingdom? You're watching Mark Dolan tonight, live from Buckingham Palace. Don't forget, my big opinion and my take at 10 are on the way. But here's me mingling with the great British public. What kind of king do you think Charles will be?
I think he'll be a good king. Let's face it, he's had many years watching his mum doing a great job. After all of that waiting in the wings, he's had a lot of time to think about it.
My parents are from the British Caribbean, so I am also a British citizen, and so this is like coming home and representing our family as well. I think he has an incredible sense of duty to the country, a deep sense of what the job entails, as well as to be a great figurehead and monarch for all of the British territory.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns. All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss? Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Well, it is the Coronation countdown. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight from an increasingly blustery Buckingham Palace. And let's head to the Mall now and hear about the final preparations from our brilliant national reporter, Paul Hawkins. Hi, Paul.
Yeah, hi Mark. It's down here, it's pretty blustery as well. In fact, the rain is just starting to fall. There was no rain forecast, and then that horrible cloud up there hoved into view, and then everyone started kind of reassessing the situation, and they've been putting on coats like these two ladies here. Let's just show everyone your Union Jack suit, because I know you're very proud of it.
We're very proud of it.
Yeah,
very proud.
There you go. Look at that. Brilliant, marvellous stuff.
Very proud.
Great stuff. Whereabouts have you come from?
We're from Oxford.
All right, okay. And you've been here, you got here today?
Yes, we did. Yes,
okay.
yes, 2 o'clock this afternoon.
How have you found today?
Oh, absolutely wonderful. The atmosphere and just everybody's been so lovely.
Yeah.
Really lovely. A lovely, lovely atmosphere. Yeah. I've never been to anything like this before.
What was the bit? Because there have been various dignitaries
yes.
and various people walking along the mall, shaking hands with the public. Who was your favourite?
Well, it's got to be King Charles, hasn't it, really?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's got to be,
He didn't get as far as us, unfortunately.
No, he got as far as halfway along the Mall, but he didn't get to us, unfortunately, because and then he got in the car. So we knew he was up the other end, but we didn't get to
did wave,
see.
but that
he
was
did
from a
wave,
car.
yeah, from a car.
Yeah.
So.
And who are you here with? Because I know that I've spoken to a lot of people here that met at the funeral of the Queen that have now reunited for the coronation. Have you?
We're just 4 friends that have come up from Oxford.
Yes.
Very good friends.
So what's so great about the royal family? Because a lot of people say it costs a lot of money.
That word tradition, isn't it? It's tradition.
It's our history.
History. Yeah, history. Yes, yes.
And what are you looking forward to tomorrow, most of all? Because there's going to be a lot of stuff to see.
There is. There is.
Everything.
Everything, really. Yeah. All the finery, the dresses, everything. Yeah.
What about that gold carriage, eh?
Oh,
exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Would you like to ride in the gold carriage? Because I hear the suspension is pretty dodgy.
Oh, I'd love
Needs
to
a
ride in
service.
the gold carriage. Yeah, love to. Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, just the once. Just the once. Yeah.
And the rain's starting to fall now. Are you guys going to be staying in a tent overnight, or
No, we've got our chairs.
you're doing the sleeping in chairs thing as well? I don't know how you're going to do
We've
it.
got a sleeping bag. We've got a bin liner. and we've got umbrellas, and we've just got our friends, our prosecco, and we'll be fine.
And you'll be all right, even if it rains like it's starting to now.
Well, we
just have to. We're going to grin and bear it. We're here now. That's it.
Yeah, and as you said, this wasn't forecast.
No.
And we've looked on our phone several times, and it wasn't forecast. So not quite sure. This could be just a little shower, and then hopefully it'd be a lovely evening.
Yeah.
So
listen, thanks for speaking to us. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the night. Stay dry, as dry as you can. The rain's starting to fall, Mark. I don't know if you can probably see it from your position, but I think where you're sitting, you're nicely covered up. So that must be all right from where you're sitting. But here, they're battening down the hatches and the umbrellas are coming out, even though this rain wasn't forecast. But you've got to be ready for it in this weather, right?
Listen, it hasn't spoiled your gorgeous hair. Lovely job, Paul. Really enjoyed all the coverage today and the last few days as well. The brilliant Paul Hawkins. With me now is the ex-British Army officer and political commentator Ben Obsi-Jekti, and I've still got Tom Bauer as well, journalist and biographer, of course, the author of Rebel King, The Making of a Monarch. Ben, lovely to have you here. And what a moment for all of us to be in front of the palace. Yes, it's got a little rainy and blustery, but I feel that the nation is definitely in the grip of coronation fever.
It certainly feels like that. I think you've only got to sort of appreciate the buzz there is around this place at the moment, and coming here this evening, seeing the families unpacking their tents and their camping equipment for a night to get a good spot to watch the parade. It definitely feels like there is a real atmosphere of excitement about tomorrow, and I think even the most curmudgeonly people with regards to the coronation can't help but get caught up in that experience.
Yeah, and my impression is that actually the coronation hasn't been oversold. I think that the King and his publicity team, his PR team, have got this right. That, you know, there was talk of a slightly slimmed down affair, not quite a budget coronation, but certainly a coronation that's mindful of the fact that we're in the grip of a cost of living crisis, the economy is facing major challenges. It feels like there's a modesty about it.
It does feel as if there is a certain modesty about it, and I think most of the heavy lifting seems to be done by the media, to be honest. I think that's where the excitement has been building, the vox pops, the speaking to people as we've just seen.
Yeah.
I think that's the element that's really driven this and encouraged people to come along and get involved in it. And I think that's where, you know, we export pomp and ceremony very well, and I think the excitement from everybody else has rubbed off on us, and I think we've been very much caught up in it. So it looks like it should be incredible to watch.
Now, what about the importance of the military to Charles? Is that a cause close to his heart, do you think?
I think it certainly is. I think you've only got to look at the number of colonelcies that he holds, the colonel-in-chiefs that he represents, his willingness to wear military uniform. I was reading an anecdote about him the other day in terms of when he became colonel-in-chief of the parachute regiment, and in order to wear the wings, he decided that he was going to do P Company and to do the jumps course, because otherwise he didn't feel like he deserved to wear the maroon beret. And I think that's the measure of the individual that he is. I don't think that as the monarch, you need the respect of the military, and whilst much of that is almost a guarantee, anything that you can do to further that commitment and that connection, I think, is going to be key.
Has he seen enough action in order to sort of win the respect of the military?
Alas, this is no longer the 11th century, and there's no chance of him leading the army across to proclaim himself king of France.
I mean, we did see Harry earn his stripes to a degree, didn't we? And perhaps Andrew as well. Dare I mention his name?
I think it's really important that the royal family always has a connection to the military, and I think whatever happens, you know, the fact that Harry has served, the Duke of Sussex served in Afghanistan, the Duke of York served in the Falklands, that's an incredible commitment, and a role that they don't necessarily have to do. So their willingness to get involved and to serve on the front line, I think when many other people choose not to, is to be commended.
Yeah, Tom, what do you think about the King's attitude to the armed forces? He's, as you mentioned, with those spider letters, he's been very supportive behind the scenes.
Oh, action man, there's no doubt about it. And the whole royal family has been, I mean, you know better than me, I mean, they actually serve king and country, queen and country. The loyalty of soldiers towards the monarch is undiluted, is absolutely passionate. And I think they've all the royals, in the way they ride and the horse guards, the change of the guard and all the rest of it. It's all been amazing, their commitment. And you can't be a prince without having somehow committed yourself at some stage. And Charles, of course, was in the Navy. So it was a pretty good record.
Gentlemen, let's jump forward a little bit because we want to get these rain showers out of the way. Apologies to my team behind the cameras there. They have to refocus and reset, but I don't want everyone drenched, especially not that expensive suit that Tom Bauer's wearing, or your lovely whistle as well, Tom.
I felt like I was a soldier in the meantime.
A little bit.
But if you notice on the cover, he's dressed in a wonderful uniform.
Is. Let's have a little look at that.
And that's the point about the royal family. They're committed. And the Army and the Navy and the Air Force have terrific commitment to the royal family in turn.
Indeed so. Now, Ben, what about the coronation and the great people of this country? Can the King unite the United Kingdom? Can he bring all of our communities together? Because we need a figure that can. No politician can now, because as you know, politics is so divisive, it's so tribal. But can the King be the one to unlock some unity within our country?
I think there's a natural unity built into the monarchy, being an apolitical organisation as it technically is. I think the ability of the monarch to be able to unite the nation in a common cause of behind the country is perhaps their greatest unifying talent. And I think that no doubt this is a transitional phase, and I'm sure King Charles will want to put his own stamp on the monarchy and to do things in a slightly different way and in potentially, in many ways, a more modern way as we look towards the future that holds. And I think it will be a very interesting time to see how that pans out. I think even those people who are perhaps a big supporter of the coronation, should we say, and those that are even actively trying to avoid it, this is a shared experience, and with that shared experience, on Tuesday everyone will be asked, where did you watch the coronation? And even if you have to answer the question that you avoided it as well as you could, you're still involved in that conversation and you're still brought along on the journey.
Well, I agree, because I remember, I do think the Jubilee and the Queen's sad funeral did bring the country together. Put paid to this idea that somehow Britain is a wildly intolerant, hateful country, and actually it was a great celebration of our diversity, but effortlessly so, not forced, but just a moment where the nation instinctively comes together. It's almost like a diagnostic, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a testing the pulse of the nation,
and it hugely feels that there are no shortage of people who want to be involved in this occasion, who are queuing now in the rain on the Mall to get a good view of the parade tomorrow. So the sheer willingness of the public to come behind, to pull together and come behind this.
And it will be a fabulous parade. 7,000 soldiers. I mean, in the Queen's funeral, it was just absolutely mesmerising. It was the guards and
the brigade major was saying that the procession itself is 1.42 miles long, and it's 15 abreast, and it will fill the Mall from left to right and from front to back. And he said that when he reaches Buckingham Palace, the back of the parade will still be at Downing Street, so there will the most amazing photos will come from that.
It would be remiss of me just a couple of seconds on this, but I don't want to spoil the party or the mood of good humour, but you are the chairman of Hornsey and Wood Green Conservatives. Is it game over for Rishi Sunak? Have you already lost the next election?
Not at all. Not at all. I think this is a barometer, and I think this tests the resolve of the party, and it identifies where potentially the party is going wrong, or is maybe not connecting with people as well as we could be. And I think that gives us the ability to identify where those things can be addressed, and there's plenty of time until the next election.
Bring Boris back?
Another 18 months.
Bring Boris back? You pretend not to hear that question?
The Prime Minister is doing a fantastic job, and I think he is setting us on exactly the right course.
I think we've got a future Prime Minister sitting next to us. Put Ben in charge. My thanks to Ben, obviously Injectee. I'll be dealing with Rishi Sunak on Sunday night, in my big opinion. But for this weekend, tonight and tomorrow, it's a coronation party. Let's head to one of tonight's 3 polls that we've been asking you online. And I've been asking, will the coronation unite the United Kingdom? Let's take a look. The results are in. 36% say yes, but sadly 64% say no, the coronation will not unite the United Kingdom. Now, coming up, we'll be meeting the crowds camping overnight, and I'll be asking Tom Bauer and Eve Pollard, is Meghan Markle's absence disrespectful, and can the £250 million cost of the coronation be justified? But here's another taste of me out meeting the great British public.
Where will you be for the big event tomorrow?
Well, unfortunately, I'll be going home. As much as I'd like to stay here tonight, yes, because the atmosphere and everything about it is fantastic. And yes, and I think he'll make a very good king.
I think there's always something, a bit of a cheeky smile there as well, you can see with him too. So I think behind the sense of occasion and austerity that he holds, I think there's probably a bit of fun in there, and hopefully that will bring some lighthearted and good feelings as well to the job that he's doing and sense of the work.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope? It's very much so. And the big moral questions of the day. I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight, and it's the Coronation Countdown live from Buckingham Palace. And don't forget, at 9 o'clock, we've got my big opinion, my appraisal of King Charles, my manifesto for our new monarch. And in my take at 10, I'll be making the case for Queen Camilla. But with me for the next few minutes, I'm delighted to welcome back Tom Bauer, who is the author and writer, the biographer of the King, Rebel King, The Making of a Monarch, and also Fleet Street legend, the First Lady of Fleet Street, Eve Pollard. Eve, can we now get to the Sussexes? I've stayed off that subject for 45 minutes. I'm very proud of myself. Yes. Simple question. Is Meghan Markle's absence disrespectful to the King and to the people of this country?
I think it'd probably be rather a relief to the King and some of the people of this country. I mean, she has the perfect excuse. It's her son's birthday. I think it's very sad. I think the whole situation's very sad because they could have been very useful if they just hadn't leapt off and tried to make a lot of money out of being royal. He has to be here. I mean, their whole future depends on him being associated with the royal family. Without it, nothing. So I think it's very sad that there isn't any sort of kindness, gentleness,
Empathy.
softness, empathy. Exactly. She hasn't gone to see her father, who's had several strokes. So I don't know. I mean, after all, that little boy could have had a very nice party here on Sunday with all his English relatives. But we're not there yet, are we?
We're not. She should be here, I think, because there might have been some crowds booing her, or she might have had a frosty welcome, but I don't think the British people would have abused her en masse.
No.
And I think people would have respected the fact that she came, she faced the music, held her head up high, and I think she's missed an opportunity.
But there's not much facing the music, is there?
Not her nature, perhaps.
No, not with her family, not with her family here. It's very sad.
Is it unsurprising to you, Tom, as the biographer of Meghan Markle, your latest bestseller is out now, is it surprising to you that she's not there?
Absolutely not. I never thought she would be here. I'm surprised.
She bottled it.
No, I think she doesn't care about Britain. I mean, she's used Britain. It's been a wonderful platform for this third-rate actress to become a global icon.
Yep.
And she always intended
I think you're
to
very
go back.
harsh on Suits. I enjoyed it, especially season 2.
I'm sure it was a good series. I'm sad for you that you thought it was so good.
Well, I don't have a very exciting private life, but...
But I mean, the point is that her wedding guests showed that she never intended to stay. It was all California and Hollywood.
Many of whom she had never met.
Exactly, the Clooney's, the Oprah Winfrey, and all these went to her friends. So it's always part of the programme to go back to California. The question is whether she can sustain it there. So I'm not surprised that she didn't come. I'm a bit surprised that Harry came. I think there was a lot of arm twisting, a lot of negotiations, which one day will become apparent. But it wasn't inevitable that he'd come.
Except Eve says that he should be. He has to be here. He has to be next to the royals. Otherwise, the further and further away he gets from them, the less and less is their star quality. Their only interest to people of the world is that they're part of the royal family.
His absence would go down in history.
Well, it would go down.
There in
and it would
every
look very,
photograph.
very small and petty.
Well, you may be right, but they are small and petty. What he said about his father, what he said about Camilla, what he said about his brother is so outrageous.
Yes.
He's so disloyal. He's so dishonest.
I think
that I think it's unbelievable.
I mean, if you're Charles,
he's 35. Couldn't you grow up?
You have inhabited the psychology and mentality of Charles in the writing of your book. If you are Charles, do you want William? Do you want Harry there?
Well, I think he does want him there because I think he feels guilty about the way that Harry was abandoned to an extent after Diana's death as he pursued his other interests. And also he believes somehow that reconciliation is possible, but it's not possible, except, as Harry has said, unless they all come grovelling and apologise to me for being born and having not been treated properly and not getting a bigger bedroom, I'm not going to talk to them.
But that was very petty, wasn't it? And the fact is, this was a chance. If they'd missed this chance, you really are in the area of no going back.
Yeah, he's kept the door open, hasn't he?
He's kept the door slightly ajar.
Tom, you're about to get your train, right? The gloves are off. How long do you give that marriage? I don't mean the King and Camilla. I mean Harry and Meghan.
Well, I'm in the minority. I don't see any advantage for Meghan to break the marriage up. I mean, here, a 42-year-old mother of two, no great career alone. What, other than an 80-year-old Getty or something who might fancy Meghan, I don't see that she is actually the bimbo-esque woman who appeals to the sort of American tycoons. So for the moment, I think that they need each other. And I think Harry is a dutiful husband. He won't cramp her style. I think in the end she does want to go into politics. She'll then drop the royal title. But there's all to play for her. She's a very, very clever woman. She has got her eyes fixed on a goal, and she's playing it pretty well at the moment.
Does she really want to be US president?
She probably does, but there are many other people who do too. So I don't think the job is
very keen on becoming governor of California, and she had many people there helping her. And in the end, she realised the revulsion politicians get is much more than she's had so far.
And there's no money in it.
I think she might try and get this Tig thing, this idea of being the new Gwyneth Paltrow, off the ground. If that works, they might stay together. If it doesn't, not sure.
And Eve, before you get into your Merc, can I ask you about money, actually?
I don't have a Merc.
The Mirror, your ex-paper, is speculating that this coronation will cost in the region of £250 million, maybe 100 million plus for the coronation itself and then the rest for security. Is that cost justified?
How much does that work out per person? probably about 3p a person.
Yeah, a fraction.
I think we need these things. I mean, and it's not their fault that security's had to be so tight. I've never seen it tighter, and having been here for every royal wedding, it's stronger now than ever. I mean, you weren't blocked off. You could just walk the whole length of Green Park, and it's very tough. I think it depends how tomorrow goes. It depends how the next year goes. But we never thought when the Queen was doing things or going to Chelsea and they'd have to clear Chelsea Festival or, you know, the flower thing, that they'd have to spend a fortune on security. We loved her. It's up to him, and I think he will, because Camilla's so great, to get us to love them.
Well, it's an absolute thrill to be here at the Palace for the Coronation Countdown, and it's a genuine thrill, a professional thrill, to be accompanied by two journalistic titans in Tom Bauer and Eve Pollard. So thank you, Eve, and thank you, Tom. Good luck exiting the compound, and Eve, don't forget your high visibility jacket, and don't get mistaken for a glamorous builder. Look, you are watching and listening to our pre-coronation special. It's Coronation Eve on GB News. Coming up in My Big Opinion, I'll give my verdict on whether the reign of King Charles will be a success. Plus, more brilliant guests and more big opinions. In my take at 10, I'll be making the case for Queen Camilla. Also, waiting in the wings, former royal bodyguard Ken Worth and top royal insider Prince Andrew's best mate, let's be honest, his only mate, Lady Victoria Hervey, and a very special, a VIP guest at 10 o'clock. The Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Scofield. She's flown in from La La Land, and she's with us in the rain here in central London. She doesn't know what rain is. She'll be very excited. Lots to come.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway, Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
That's a real worry. Going mad. It is Coronation Eve, and the countdown to the big day is happening. We've got ringside seats. It's the biggest constitutional moment of the century so far. On Mark Dolan tonight, in a special show live from Buckingham Palace, we've got the pundits, the royal experts, the journalists and the biographers. And we've got you, the great British public, for what is a night of anticipation, excitement and celebration. Coming up this hour, in My Big Opinion, my appraisal of our new monarch. Is King Charles up to the job? I will be giving my unapologetic verdict shortly. Plus, we've got top historian David Oldroyd-Bolt, socialite and Prince Andrew's best mate, dropper of truth bombs, Lady Victoria Hervey, and Diana's former bodyguard, Ken Wharf, all with me here live at the Palace. You won't want to miss a second of the action. We have got ringside seats. But first, the headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Mark, thank you. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom this evening. The Labour Party has made significant gains in the local elections in England and is now the largest party at local government level. With just 4 out of 230 councils still left to declare their results, Labour has so far gained control of 22, while the Liberal Democrats have gained 12. The Conservative Party, though, have lost control of 48 councils and more than 1,000 seats. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has admitted the results are disappointing.
The message I am hearing from people tonight is that they want us to focus on their priorities and they want us to deliver for them. And that's about halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the boats. That's what people care about, that's what they want us to deliver, and that's what I and the government are going to work very hard to do.
Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer believes the Labour Party is on track to win a majority in the next general election.
We've just taken Medway for the first time since 1998. That is a very, very good night for the Labour Party. And it's the same story elsewhere. Same story in Plymouth, in Stoke, up in Middlesbrough. And these are the key battlegrounds as we go into the next election.
And the Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, said the Conservatives should be worried.
These are some of our best ever results. They give us a great foundation for the next general election. There'll be Conservative MPs across the blue wall seats, across many of these areas, who will be really, really worried now that the Liberal Democrats could beat them at the next general election.
Our other top story this evening. On the eve of the King's coronation, the King and the Prince and Princess of Wales have greeted well-wishers on the Mall.
Congratulations, you look much younger in the flesh. And best of luck for tomorrow.
King Charles made a surprise appearance to meet with some of the thousands gathered outside Buckingham Palace. William and Kate joined the King for the walkabout. They praised the party atmosphere and described the coronation as a great moment of celebration. The trio shook hands and took selfies with the crowds, and there were cheers of God Save the King. The royalists who've been camping out, hoping to catch a glimpse of history being made this weekend, described it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
We were literally just walking back to the hotel and then we just saw everybody cheering and came over and then saw the King.
And I got a shake of the hand. You got a shake of the hand? Yeah, through the crowd and I got a shake of the hand.
I think this is Britain at its best, you know. Everybody's nattering to everybody. There's no stiff upper lip. It's just lovely.
We just wanted to be a part of history and enjoy the you know, nobody does it better than the British. So we wanted to see all the excitement and be a part of it.
In other news, the World Health Organization has announced that COVID-19 no longer represents a global health emergency. It's a step towards the end of a pandemic that has killed nearly 7 million people globally. But the director insists countries shouldn't let down their guard, warning the virus is here to stay. You're up to date on GB News. Now it's back to Mark.
Jump me forward. Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. It's Coronation Eve. Roll back, folks. This is live telly. Let's take it from the top. Yes, indeed. We are live at the palace. It's Coronation Eve and the countdown to the biggest constitutional moment of the century so far. On Mark Dolan tonight, in a special show live from the palace, we've got the pundits, the royal experts, the journalists, the insiders and the biographers. And we've got you, the great British public, for what is a night of anticipation, excitement and celebration. In my big opinion, my appraisal of our new monarch. Is he up to the job? I'll be giving my unapologetic verdict in just a moment. In my take at 10, I'll be making the case for Queen Camilla. It's my view she will be the jewel in the crown of this new monarchy. We'll also be joined by Prince Andrew's best mate, socialite and dropper of truth bombs, Lady Victoria Hervey, a historian that knows what he's talking about, David Oldroyd-Bolt, ex-royal journalist Linda Jubilee, and Diana's former bodyguard, Ken Worf, plus the queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Scofield. And I'm delighted to say, last but not least, after 10, we'll be joined live here down at the palace by a man that knows the royals better than they know themselves, Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell. What a lineup! All of that tonight on Mark Dolan Tonight. I want to hear from you throughout the show. Mark at gbnews.uk. You won't want to miss a second of the action. We're ringside. We've got the best seats in the house. It's showtime. Let's go. Tough gig, eh? How do you follow the Queen, Queen Elizabeth? A contender for the greatest monarch the country has ever seen, and one of the greatest Britons of the 20th century, second perhaps only to Winston Churchill. Well, the truth is you don't follow the Queen. You serve her legacy, which is a monarchy in rude health, enjoying great public support, and a monarchy admired not just at home but abroad, reflecting Britain's history, its glamour, its style, its soft diplomatic power, its values and its traditions. Charles can't be Elizabeth 2.0. A sequel just isn't possible. No scriptwriter could pen that one. So Charles has a unique challenge. He's got to be the same, yet different. As with previous incumbents, he must fastidiously stay out of politics. His zealous enthusiasm for net zero, his war on modern architecture, and his fondness for unelected elites like the World Economic Forum must be a thing of the past. If there is so much as a hint of politics from this man, it will be game over for him and the whole royal project. I, for one, will not accept a politicised monarch. But so far the signs are looking good. Since the terribly sad passing of the Queen, in my view, Charles hasn't put a foot wrong. The campaigning prince has demonstrated a noticeable change in approach and tone since taking the crown. In an interview in 2018, when asked if he would be a politically active king, he said, "Of course not. I'm not stupid." And stupid, he is not. What he is hard-working, committed, articulate, highly knowledgeable and empathetic. I think he's going to smash it. Charles will give this his all, and all of us will be mightily grateful. So, will I pledge my allegiance to this new king? Of course I will. If you want me to get a bloody tattoo, I'll do it. Although we'd have to negotiate with Mrs. Dolan where it would go. We're lucky to have a king who's got something about him, who has achieved big things in his life, including his charities, his stance on sustainable farming, and the highly successful Duchy Originals brand, which actually makes money. Imagine that! An entrepreneurial prince, quite the rarity. He's not a robot, he's not a cardboard cutout. He has principles, he has values. He's got a brain and a heart. He cares. His constitutional role will rightly temper his political impulses, which we all know about, but we've got a man of substance moving into that building behind me. And that's no bad thing. King Charles is going to be King Great. And this coronation, post-Brexit, post-pandemic, and of course post-Elizabeth, promises so much. But Charles can't do this on his own. We must come together as a community and a nation to support this dynamic new king as he navigates Britain through an exciting new chapter in our history. He needs our backup. King Charles is no spaniel, and tomorrow he's top dog. What are your feelings about King Charles? Is he going to be a great king? Let me know. Mark at gbnews.uk. Reacting to my big opinion is a man that knows the royals better than most. Former bodyguard to Princess Diana and best-selling author and commentator Ken Wharf. Hi Ken, great to see you.
Mark, good evening.
You've avoided the rain. You've got some kind of genius timing.
Well, yeah, thanks to the GB News crew. Yes, brilliant.
Well, look, it's great to have you here, and the atmosphere out there is electric.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, listen, it's building up, I think, as you rightly just said there in your introduction, to be, you know, an amazing event. I mean, I was listening to the news earlier this evening. You know, this is the biggest public order event that Scotland Yard have ever held, you know, with over 11,000 police officers on duty. So, you know, all the skeptics saying, well, you know, what if things go wrong? I think, to be quite frank with you, the expertise that has been with the Yard for so many years now, given, you know, the late Queen's funeral last year, all these ceremonial events that run yearly anyway, and all the other major weddings, etc., that have happened. You know, I think the Met and the Security Service are in a very good position here to make this a great day. But, you know, it is, as you said in your introduction, you know, here is a man that was the Prince of Wales for so long, you know, always the king in waiting. And this is his moment. And, you know, the critics are very active to say, well, yes, he will, he won't, or whatever. But I do think, and I agree with you, that I think that the country now needs someone like him with all his ideas, particularly with climate change. I agree with you, although in a way I'm actually rather sceptical as to how he might play this one, because he's so vehemently, you know, keen to bring this about. But as you say, you know, politically it might be a problem. So actually, who does he do? Who does he give this to act on his behalf? And this is where the Prince of Wales now comes into play with William. I think, you know, this is a role that I think he could challenge and take on and represent and carry out his father's ideas.
But will he want to do his bidding for his father, particularly given that the net zero agenda is contentious? I mean, it's a political issue. Some people are concerned, obviously, you know, that there's the scientific view that the planet's heating up, that we've got to get the carbon emissions down. But any policies to tackle that are going to affect people's lives. They'll affect the economy. They'll affect perhaps our freedoms. That's not the domain of a king or even a Prince of Wales, is it?
Well, no, it's not. Well, actually, he has an idea, Mark. I mean, he believes, like all of us, that there is a problem here. You know, you cannot be a denier. I mean, there is a problem with this planet now because of all that's happening to it. You know, we have dates set in the diary that we have this sort of zero, you know, commitment. But in fact, nothing seems really to be happening, and there's no one seems to be driving that initiative.
But do you really want a king doing that?
No, I'm not saying he will,
or
but
even a Prince of Wales.
Well, I think anyone that can actually put light into this, anyone that can make something happen, you know, then it's worth it. Because who else is going to do this? You know, that's
our elected politicians, I suppose.
Well, yeah, but that's the whole point. They're not doing that, and I think that what the king has through his son, through William, has the sort of publicity, has that stature, has that audience to make it work. We know that. Look at what he said before as the Prince of Wales. You know, he wasn't wrong so many years ago when he made these points. So anyway, I do think that.
But isn't that the point, that the role of king is different to Prince of Wales? I mean, wasn't the genius of the Queen a woman that you knew well on a personal level? You held her in very high regard. Her genius is that we did not know what she thought when she was monarch, at least.
No, that's an era that's actually gone. That's moved on. It's past. You know, we're now moving into a new monarchy. With a king that has been fighting through all his entire life as the Prince of Wales, and you know, with all these challenges that he firmly believes in, he's not going to give it up, as you rightly point out. He said that, you know, I'd be an idiot sort of to suddenly start speaking out, but there's a direction he can actually move that forward in a way to still give it the momentum, so that we actually don't lose sight of this. Because, and I firmly believe that, you know, William could be the right person, the convener here, to move his ideas forward.
So you know the family intimately well, and you served them so well, of course, as Diana's bodyguard, and you were a bodyguard to the to their children, to William and Harry as well. Can you tell me about how the family will be feeling on the eve of this coronation? Because yes, it's a moment for the country, but it's a moment for this group of people as well. Charles is a grandfather and a father and a brother.
Well, I think that the family, I mean, you know, him, his new wife, the Queen Consort, William and Harry, and then his brothers and sisters. I mean, you know, it hasn't changed. We know that he wants to trim this down, you know, but he doesn't want to lose its popularity.
Did you notice how Anne pushed back on the idea of a slimmed-down monarchy?
I did see that. Quite what she was thinking. I don't know what she means by that.
Right? She said, "Oh, a slimmed-down monarchy doesn't sound like a very good idea to me."
Well, I mean, when you slim down, I think we have a few sort of aged royals in there. I mean, the great Duke of Kent, who I had the pleasure of working with for many years, and you know, his sister, the Norfolks, and so forth. I think what the king is looking at is to sort of at the end of their time, perhaps, you know, we'll move it forward and change, you know, and to trim that numbers down.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a fair comment.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, Ken, I'm delighted we've got you for the hour. No better man to help us with our pre-match coverage. That's right, it's the Coronation Countdown. We've got ringside seats. And coming up, I'll be asking Ken Wharf and socialite and royal insider Lady Victoria Hervey whether Charles can unite the royal brothers. That's next, but first, here's me doing my favourite thing of all, which is meeting the great British public. Take a look. What's your appraisal of Queen Camilla?
I think she's doing very well, and I think they make a very good couple.
The younger generations will see themselves in William and Kate as well, and I just think, I think they'll be two different but supporting roles.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. It's the Coronation Countdown. We're live from Buckingham Palace and the emails are coming in thick and fast. A big reaction to my big opinion. I'm very excited about what King Charles can achieve. It's my view that he will smash it. Let's have a look. What do you have to say? Pauline, hi Mark. Will the royal family forego their overseas holidays in pursuit of net zero? How about this from Richard? Hi Mark, I'm not so sure the pomp and privilege on display tomorrow will help support for the monarchy grow domestically. However, internationally it will do wonders for tourism as an advert for Great Britain. So it's a 50-50 for me, says Richard. Thank you for that, Richard. And last, actually, let's do two more if we can. Michael, hearty congratulations to you, Mark. That was a brilliant monologue. Inspiring. Well, thank you, Michael. It was easy to write because it came from the heart. I don't think that Charles is a perfect person. Who is? But he's got something about him. He's achieved a lot in his life. And I think that he's going to do a great job. But that's my hope anyway. And last but not least, Tom. If that idiot continues on his current trajectory, there's no chance that the British public will take his ideas on board. So there you go. It's a thumbs down for Charles from Tom. This show's all about opinions. It's all about free speech. Let's get the opinions and free speech now of model, socialite, broadcaster and political commentator Lady Victoria Hervey. Victoria, great to have you in the studio.
Good to be here.
Here at the Palace. And, well, look, first of all, can Charles unite the royal brothers?
I think, yes, I think if anybody can, it's going to be him. I mean, this weekend is obviously going to be very testing for the brothers being together for the first time since, you know, all of Harry's revelations have come out. So probably very nervous, I'm sure.
Because you do wonder, don't you, that the king is going to be reflecting on his many duties that lie ahead. He's got to...
And obviously he wants to unite them. He
wants to,
you know,
well,
it's a much stronger family.
His is overflowing, right? He's got the Commonwealth. He's got to maintain the popularity of the monarchy post-Elizabeth. That's no mean feat. She's a hard act to follow. But then, on a personal level, he's got to be worried about his own family too.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they are family, and you know, blood is thicker than water, and I'm sure at some point they will make up.
Do you think so?
I do. I think eventually. Probably by the time when he moves back to England at some point.
Right. What needs
it will happen.
What needs to happen for them to really bury the hatchet, the boys?
Probably for Meghan Markle to be out of the picture.
Okay.
Right? I don't see that ever really kind of happening all at the same time. I think it'll just happen in its own time. I think he'll stop missing England and the two brothers will unite again.
So you don't think for as long as Harry and Meghan are together as husband and wife that the family can reconcile?
Yeah, I do. I sort of believe that. Like, I'm sure they can sort of reconcile, and I'm sure they will be making an effort. But for him to be accepted back into the fold, I think it will be Meghan and Harry splitting.
And of course, you've just relocated, you've come home, you've come back to the UK, and you lived in Los Angeles for several years.
I did, 18 years.
18 years, a long time. You've still got the tan, but there's obviously, you know the scene out there, and these relationships, these marriages, they're very cosmetic affairs sometimes, aren't they? And it's a blink and you'll miss it situation for many of these power couples.
Oh,
so
totally.
Could that happen to Harry and Meghan?
Like
a Hollywood marriage.
It's a Hollywood marriage. They don't last, well, they don't usually last that long in that sort of environment because there's nothing real about it. And that's one of the reasons why I moved back to England, because I missed the culture. I missed seeing these Union Jacks everywhere. I missed the history and the buildings and everything that we have in this country. And, you know, the Hollywood thing, it was fun. And look, I can't say anything about him being there because I did exactly the same thing. I escaped the media. I went to Hollywood and lived my life there away from everything. But there will be a time when he's going to miss all this, and he's going to miss his friends, and this is what he is. This is his DNA. He can't hide from what he actually is.
Ken Worf, you know the boys very well. Can their father bring them together? Does something need to happen? Something as seismic as Harry and Meghan to split?
Well, it's an interesting point. I mean, what I think is rather sad, actually, here, this great occasion of his father, becoming the king of this country, that Harry always was going to come back. I said that. What I think is very disappointing for him, and I think for the royal family generally, is that Meghan didn't come back either. And I think that I think tells the tale. I don't know why she suggested that she was staying there looking after her children, whatever. But in a sense, I'm inclined to agree with Victoria in that, at some point something has to give here. This is a great occasion for them to talk, although there won't be a great deal of time. Harry, in my view, wants to come back. This is what he is. I mean, living in America like that isn't really his style. The book Spare didn't do him much good, I don't think, although he made a lot of money out of it. But it didn't do any great good for the family either. And I think if deep down he probably acknowledges that. But I think in a way that he has to find a way, privately to reconcile his differences. But the future of his wife Meghan, I'm not certain. My own view is that I have to say I think that will end in divorce ultimately, that he will probably come back to the United Kingdom. What is right? He will always be a prince. He was born to be a prince of this land. But I think that is sometime in the future. Although I wouldn't actually. My own view is not too far away.
Yes, I mean, obviously it is about the brothers, isn't it? Do you think that William would forgive Harry? Because, I mean...
I think eventually, I think they would. Look, all families argue, all families, we do make up.
Yeah.
That is what family does. And, but it will take a lot, and it will take for Harry to actually spend some proper quality time for his brother and really go over all the things that upset him, and what are the things he did wrong, and how did what was Kate upset about, and all the rest of the family. And but the problem is Meghan has just pulled him away from all of that, and so that's why it is so hard to try and see that life with her still being in the picture, because all she's ever done is pull him away from that. It's almost like she's just done it as a control thing. So if she gets him away from everything that he has loved and his old friends, she can tell him what to do more.
It's fair to say that King Charles has kept a dignified silence in regards to the Sussexes, wouldn't you say? And all he's ever said publicly is to reiterate his love and affection for his son, and he's essentially, he's not sunk to their level, has he?
No, I mean, of course he hasn't sunk to their level. I mean, you couldn't really get much lower than what they are doing right now. I mean, just the fact that their public engagements and things that they've suddenly been spotted doing around in LA, the timing of that is like, oh, it's the coronation here, and suddenly they're at this basketball game. I don't know, it's just a bit tacky. So Charles has kept it very sort of serene and very positive, really, that he wants to still see his son.
Does it surprise you that Charles has been this patient? Because he's quite a passionate man, isn't he? And he's a man of conviction. But he's really kept his counsel for years now.
Yeah, and he's really kept very calm about it as well.
Yeah.
So he's believed...
Although probably not privately, Ken.
Right, well, maybe not. Probably freaking
what do you think?
out.
Knowing the man, and I don't want you to divulge too many secrets, but privately,
I'm sure he's
this will be eating at him, won't it?
Yeah, but listen, I've worked with him, had the pleasure of being alongside him on many occasions, actually. I mean, he is, he was a good father, going through a period of, extreme unhappiness, during the 80s. But he played, quite a shrewd role there, because we've had this discussion before, Mark, that he knew that his children at that time enjoyed the company and being with their mother, and never objected to that, because he wanted his children to be happy. But he loved William, he loved Harry very much so, and even right up for the last 2 or 3 years, he wanted William and Harry to be part of his so-called new monarchy. And as I've said before, what's happened now is he's lost 1/3 of that. because Harry's currently in America. But it's interesting what Victoria said about America. You know, this lifestyle for him would be so unsuitable, and he's obviously finding it incredibly difficult. He's now got to find a way with his wife Meghan to decide how they're going to play their future, either in America or here in the United Kingdom, because you know this sort of transiting to and fro when there happens to be a special occasion, I don't think is going to work that often.
No.
To be honest,
So
there has to be a decision.
And there's always going to be a limited amount of time that they're going to be given these private jets to fly on.
And briefly, I mean, your argument is you know California very well. Your argument is that a good, honest lad like Harry, he can't be happy there.
No, because
it's not gonna work.
you know, it's just not going to work because he just what he is. I mean, it's changed so much as well. I mean, he's arrived at like the worst timing that you could possibly be there. You know, if it was 15 years ago, but. No, it's soulless at the end of the day, and it is very much on the downhill slope.
Well, the fact that he's here, I think, is a good idea, but it's going to be very difficult for him because none of us know exactly what the sort of media coverage is going to be of him, and actually what position or what his role will be.
But I think it is good that Meghan did not come.
I think it's good, but I think my reason why I said I think she should have come because she is still a senior member of the royal family as the Duchess,
and their little children should be.
And I think they should have been there. But you know,
I think that kids actually will probably resent the fact that when they're teenagers, they'll probably resent the fact that they were not there for their grandfather's coronation.
Yes, indeed, because they've been Tipp-Ex'd out of history, and I think that's very, very sad. Well, look, I'm delighted to say that Ken and Victoria are going to stick around because next up I'll be asking Ken Wharf and top historian David Oldroyd-Bolt, with Republican voices getting louder, could this be the last coronation? And will Charles be a significant figure of history or the forgotten king? That's next.
She'll be on my sitting room watching it on the television. I did camp out for Harry and Meghan's wedding in Windsor. It was very cold. And then I went to Windsor for the Queen's funeral, and I still haven't watched it because I was there. So it was lovely to see a final procession into the castle, but I want to watch this one on the television, and the weather's not meant to be great.
Well, I think, you can prepare for a lifetime or you can prepare for a day, but if you're ready, you're ready. So he seems ready.
Blimey, you've inspired me there. That was the pep talk I needed.
That's what I'm here for. We came all the way across the ocean for this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians just her task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope? It's very much so. And the big moral questions of the day. I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight, live from Buckingham Palace. Now, I asked the great British public earlier, is the £250 million cost of the coronation justified? We have the results, they are in, and 36.7% say it's not justified, but a healthy majority, 63.3%, say it absolutely is worth the money, and I couldn't agree. Now, with me is Ken Worth, who is the former bodyguard to Diana, Princess of Wales, and Harry and William when they were little uns, and I'm delighted now to welcome the highly respected historian and political commentator David Oldroyd-Bolt. David, lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Mark.
What will you be doing tomorrow for the big day?
Well, I'm glad to say I'll be having lunch with friends not far from here, and then going to watch the flypast, which God willing will happen at 2:30. Please, clouds go away. And enjoying the rest of the day, I think in the way that we all should. It should be a day of feasting and celebration. It should be a day of jubilation. And frankly, anybody who's not doing that needs to get their head looked at a bit. And
a significant day in our history. You don't want to miss this one, because these coronations don't come around very often.
No, it's been 70 years since the last one. I find that there were a few more in the years before that because monarchs tended to die younger and be a little closer together. But these are generally once in a generation, once in every 2 generation events, and God willing it will be the same now. If His Majesty has a lifespan of his father and mother and grandmother, then we can fully expect him to live and reign for a quarter of a century, which means that I will be practically a pensioner at that point, and you, my dear, will be in a bath chair.
But yeah, if I'm lucky, being fed by a nurse. Let's have a look at the significance of coronations over the years. I mean, have they always been this big a deal? Was it as big a deal in the 50s when the Queen was coronated into the crown?
I think when the Queen was crowned in the 50s, it was a huge deal because we were coming out of a total war of 6 years. We were still just in the grips of rationing. We had rationing for another year after the Queen was crowned in 53. And so it was an excuse for the nation to have a bit of a party, a bit of colour in life. Life was drab in those days. A great deal of the country was still bombed out after the Second World War. A great many people were living in extremely straitened circumstances. We did not enjoy the technological advantages we had now. So I think in those days they had the debate just as we are now. Is it justified in a time of quite straitened circumstances for a great many people to have this sort of celebration, this sort of grand national spectacle? And I think largely they came to the same conclusion that the country has now, based on your poll and others I've seen, that yes, it is. We don't get a new sovereign very often in our lives. Most of us may in current trends see 1 or 2. So this is not something that happens every 10 years. This is not something that we can just say, well, you know, we'll get another one soon, and so let's slim it back for now. This is something that I think is a matter of national pride. We ought to be celebrating on the scale we are.
Let's hope, as you say, with his good genetics, that Charles can be on the throne for a couple of decades. But has he got enough time to become a figure of historical importance? How long do you need as king to make a difference?
Well, I should say that His Majesty already is a figure of historical importance. He's served the longest apprenticeship of any Prince of Wales or of any broadening a crown prince in history, during which time he's had an enormously advantageous effect on the country. Look at the work that the Prince's Trust and all of his other charities have done over these years and the amount of good that has been achieved already. So I should say that even were the King's reign to be short, he should already be assured of a place in our history books. But given that he's also been so far ahead of the curve on the discussions we're now having, for instance, around the sort of housing we want in the country and the quantities we want, of the impact we have on our environment, the natural environment, of the sort of life we want culturally and spiritually, I think it's clear that the King, if he continues down the path he's set for himself as Prince of Wales, will be one of our more notable monarchs.
And of course, if things were to go south for the royal family, and I hope they don't, for the monarchy, it's not inconceivable that this could be the last coronation.
I think it rather is inconceivable because the support for the younger generation of royals is more consistent, not necessarily higher, but more consistent even than it is for the King and Queen. We know that the Prince and Princess of Wales are very, very popular people across the range of ages. Now, of course, younger people are not so keen on the institution of monarchy, largely, I think, because it is something which most people grow into feeling great affection for. The longer they live, the more they see the good it does constitutionally, the more they see the benefits of it compared with other systems of government and other sorts of heads of state. I think the fonder people become of the institution of monarchy. So let's not forget the Prince of Wales is now a man entering early middle age, so he's not a young man anymore. He has plenty of time as he grows into middle age to build upon that support, and as the Prince and Princess of Wales' children themselves come to take greater roles in national life, as they will do under the King's plans for a slimmed-down monarchy, I think what we'll see is the nation growing with that family. Don't forget, we haven't really had that for a long time because the Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales, their generation is now, well, as I say, in middle age. So we haven't had a young generation of royals come through for now 30, 40 years. And I think, therefore, there's possibly a bit of a disjunct between the young of our own country that are 2 generations out. Now, with Prince George, Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte, you will see generations growing up together, and therefore I think we'll see a revivification, a rejuvenation of the affection for monarchy.
And to what extent, in terms of history, have coronations and the arrival of a new king or queen been a reboot for the country? Does history tell us that when there's a new incumbent in the palace behind us, that it gives the country a fillip, a refresh in some way?
I think it rather depends on the quality of the monarch who precedes. Now, we've just seen the most extraordinary reign in our nation's history, and a sovereign who was held in enormous esteem and respect across society. And so it is natural, therefore, that there'll be a slight wobble, I think, with His Majesty coming to the throne.
It's a bit like following Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United.
It's an extremely difficult act to follow. There have been previous instances, of course, when the monarch who had preceded was so reviled and so useless that actually it was a great boost for the nation. We saw this with the Prince Regent, whose brother William IV came to the throne, and then even more with Queen Victoria acceding as an 18-year-old girl. We saw this great sense of a new start for the monarchy, or at least a new chapter in the long history of our monarchy. I think what's happening here is not so much of a transformation or a rebooting of the monarchy, it's just a sort of different view of it. This is, let's not forget, a man of 74 coming into a job at a time when most people have long since retired, or at least are considering a deep scaling back of their activities. So of course it's a different feeling, but I think we've already seen in the 8 months of His Majesty's reign that he's very, very good at the job, that he has a sure touch with the public. The affection in which His Majesty is held, and particularly that of the Queen, is growing, I think, by the week. Every poll that's done, they seem to be building more and more of that.
So you think he has the makings of a truly historic figure? I mean, you said
Yes.
he's already going to go down in history.
But as a monarch in his own right, I think it is very possible that he will be seen as a great king, because so much of what he has done to lay the groundwork of that in his long apprenticeship is already bearing fruit.
Was his apprenticeship too long?
No, I don't think you could possibly have too long an apprenticeship for such an onerous task. Is it a job that you or I would want?
I mean, has there been issue with an old kings or queens in history?
Well, of course, but those were in the days when kings and queens were much more in control of the day-to-day running of the nation, because they had serious power to intervene in government or indeed to make decisions. And B, when they were surrounded by a group of courtiers who were afraid of their positions if ever they told truths. Now, we know that as Her Majesty grew older, she was given advice from her courtiers. She sought the advice of her family about when it was time for her to withdraw from doing so many public duties and for His current Majesty to step forwards. I've no doubt that that will continue to be the case, because this is now an extremely well-honed institution, one that runs smoothly and that has a great deal of collaboration between the generations.
David, we were so happy to have you coming down to the palace. What a brilliant overview you've just given us. Enjoy your lunch tomorrow. I'd love to be involved, frankly, but I didn't get an invite.
Join us for a drink afterwards.
I didn't get the memo. Look, we'll definitely do that. I'm always up for a quick drink. Listen, my thanks to David Oldroyd-Bolt. Coming up, I'll be asking Ken Wharf and Royal Insider and socialite Lady Victoria Hervey whether Prince Andrew has been thrown under the bus. And also, does Princess Anne, deserve an upgrade? Don't forget, in the next hour, Kinsey Scofield, I should say, Linda Jubilee and Paul Burrell, all with me here at the Palace. And in my take at 10, I'll be making the case for Queen Camilla. But first, let's take a look at the moment when I ran into the King himself on the Mall earlier today. That's the King. That'll do it. That was the King. You're welcome. It's almost like there's a coronation. Got to say, I've just seen the King. I feel quite emotional. I've never made eye contact with Charles before, but he's just gone past in a car, and an incredible roar from the crowd as he actually hit the other end of the Mall. But we are witnessing history.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Dubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway, Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, and listen, the emails are coming in thick and fast. It's the Coronation countdown. We've got ringside seats for the big day tomorrow, and you've been getting your messages across, Mark at gbnews.uk. Hey Mark, a good big opinion monologue, much of which I agree with, but I will not give my allegiance to a king who doesn't give his allegiance to me, a Bible-believing Christian. Pauline has said, she wants to call out the hypocrisy of the royals when it comes to net zero. I'll get to more of your emails shortly, but with me for the next few minutes we have former royal bodyguard to Princess Diana and William and Harry, Ken Wharf, and model, socialite and broadcaster and royal insider, no less, Lady Victoria Hervey. Victoria, we've spoken about Prince Andrew in the past, and I think you feel that he's been poorly treated in relation to those allegations that he had relations with a minor.
Allegations.
You've sprung to his defence. What sort of role do you see him playing under the reign of King Charles?
I think, I think it's hard to know at this point.
Is there a way back for him? Will Charles forgive him and try to rehabilitate him?
Well, you know, his brother knows all the evidence. He has everything. He can see very clearly that he's not guilty. And I just think what has happened to him has been completely unfair. You know, there will be things coming out, you know, in the next few weeks or months. And hopefully when everything actually is out and those girls, the evidence is seen, you know, by the police, by the FBI, that in fact they did all lie, they did commit perjury, they did give in fake evidence to the FBI. Hopefully, when all that is done, I've actually also interviewed two of the big witnesses, the one who actually took the real photo at Kinsey Street, which was not Prince Andrew. I will be releasing that interview in the near future as well. And
so you feel he's been stitched up, he's been done up like a right royal kipper.
Well, he has.
For the purposes of balance, I've got to say that those making the allegations are not here to defend their position, and they would argue that they have been victims.
They know they can't do anything about me because they know I'm only talking the truth, and that is the issue. And I know they call me a witch.
So do you think, the way you see it, is that you think that Andrew has suffered a miscarriage of justice?
No, yeah, I think he has been completely falsely accused.
And you think that there is hope that he will be vindicated and cleared effectively of these allegations?
And if he is cleared of all of this, will his brother then support him? That is the big question.
That, in a way, Ken, is a political question, isn't it? Because even if Andrew is absolved of these allegations, he's damaged goods slightly, isn't he?
Well, I think the first question you asked, Victoria, was, you know, what's his role here? I mean, will the king forgive him? At the moment, no, I don't think this is the case, because it is a huge embarrassment to the royal family, and it's sort of detracting from what really is happening at the moment. I mean, for my part, I know little, if nothing, about what Victoria's talking about, this new evidence. But I think, for me, when you look at it, you know, why then did he, and with help from his mother and his brother, you know, offer up nearly £12 million to an out-of-court settlement? An out-of-court settlement for what, though?
So in America, it's very much like a done thing that you have civil cases,
But try and convince people over here
in the UK, they don't know about that as much, but in the US, it's a big thing. They sue for civil cases. That girl was only after money. She did not want it to go into some trial and her not get money. It's just about money, and that's the thing that, you know, David Boyes, her lawyers, they knew a member of the royal family. Do you realise that if he had gone to court, the whole of the royal family would have to be deposed, including the Queen? That is never going to happen.
Well, I don't know that, but I think you.
But they would all have been deposed. Could you imagine the Queen and Prince William being deposed?
I'm not so certain about that, but I think
it would have happened.
But I think, Victoria, that the fact that his association was bad enough in its own right, and the evidence that came out. You talk about the photograph. I mean, you're suggesting that was a doctored photograph. I mean, okay, forensically, there would be evidence to say that it wasn't, or was, as the case may be.
It's a photo of a photo of a photo.
I know, but I think
have the person that actually took it that will stand up in court against this woman.
That's going to be interesting. I mean, if that is the case, then I and many others will look forward to seeing this turnaround.
And the policeman.
And if that is the case, if it's actually found to be true, are you suggesting then that?
But you being police, the HMG officers and SAS guys that have met this actual witness that took the real pictures, they believe him.
Well, okay.
You know,
I mean, look,
they actually, you know, the story is pretty out there in the beginning that the officers that first met him that first time were like, you know, it was, but they did. They came out of there like, this is the guy.
Now, Virginia Giuffre would obviously maintain that she was
Giuffre will be
a
behind
victim.
bars, I hope, very soon.
Well, you know, she's not here to defend herself, obviously. I mean, this show is...
She's hiding out in Australia, conveniently. Isn't that convenient?
Okay, well, look, you know, obviously you're entitled to your view. I mean, she's not here to defend herself, and she would maintain that she's been a victim and that she didn't do it for the money. But look, you're entitled to your view. That's what this show's all about, and I thank you for making
her way through the money.
Well, look, you're not pulling your punches. What about Anne? Because I think Princess Anne is the most underrated member of the royal family. I'm a huge fan of hers. She seems to be the closest in temperament to her own mother.
Right.
Do you think she merits some kind of upgrade in the court of King Charles?
I mean, definitely. Like,
at least in profile.
I've always looked at her and always thought, you know, she has something very sort of just the way she acts, everything. I've always, I love horses as well. She's a very respected horsewoman. I actually saw Mike Tyndall last night, actually.
Did you?
So they were getting ready for the big day.
And of course, that's she's the mother-in-law, isn't she?
But I've heard, good things about her. I think actually, I don't believe in this slimmed down monarchy. I think there's too much for them they have to do. William's doing 5 engagements a day. They need more of them.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I just, as you say, I think
actually the children should be participating.
And maybe Anne is almost doing too much. I mean, her workload is colossal, isn't it, Ken?
Well, always say. I mean, Victoria talks about being friends. I was never a friend of any member of the royal family. I sort of I was very privileged to be associated and work with them, and that was extraordinary. With the Princess Royal, I think the King himself has made it quite clear that he wants her to play a more important role, and I think that's right. When you talk about sort of work experience, her job numbers, she's always sort of been at the top of the table.
She's got the craziest diary, hasn't she?
Yeah, well, she has. I mean, but an invaluable member to this trimmed down monarchy that we talk about. You say that perhaps not. I do think it will be trimmed down because.
But don't you think I feel like they need Beatrice and Eugene. They need those younger ones to be fulfilling some of those roles that they do.
Well, I disagree with that. I think because we haven't talked about it, right. the cost of actually funding this family.
What is it? One more Starbucks?
Well, I think it's a bit more than that. But I mean, that's the problem.
But
and I think this is an issue.
Relying on the old guard too much?
Well, no, but I think
relying on the old guard.
I think that's the issue that the King himself is taking. I think he wants to be seen to be doing something to try and reduce that cost. And I think the likes of Beatrice Eugenie and others.
But don't you think because of this newer generation that is coming up, and some of them are not all as much into the royal family as the older generation. So shouldn't the younger members of the family be given roles so they can relate to those?
Well, no, but I think that's what will happen with the Prince and Princess of Wales now, with their young children. They'll play the role that they did when they were then young with the Prince and Princess of Wales, in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
But I think to take it beyond that, to start including others, I think is probably something that we wouldn't be able to do.
I tell you what, this could run and run, but in the next hour, we've got Paul Burrell coming in and Kinsey Scofield. Kinsey Scofield, Paul Burrell, and in my Take at 10, I'll be making the case for Queen Camilla. All of that next. You won't want to miss a second.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop
failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's Coronation Eve and the countdown to the biggest constitutional moment of the century so far. On Mark Dolan tonight in a special show live from Buckingham Palace, we've got the pundits, the royal experts, the journalists, the biographers, and we've got you, the great British public, for what is a night of anticipation, excitement and celebration. Coming up this hour, in my take at 10, I'll be making the case for Queen Camilla. It's my view that she will be the jewel in the crown of this new monarchy. Plus, with me here tonight, live at the Palace, she's flown in on her own royal private jet, the Queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Scofield. We've also got former Fleet Street royal reporter Linda Jubilee, and live down here at the Palace, Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell. And we've got tomorrow's front pages at 10:30 sharp. There's only one show in town. It's all about the Coronation countdown. You won't want to miss a second of the action. We've got ringside seats, don't forget that. Take at 10 is coming, but first the headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Mark, thank you. Good evening. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. In the first major test for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the Conservative Party has lost control of 48 councils in England and more than 1,000 seats. With just a few councils still left to declare results, Labour has gained 22 councils and is now the largest political party at local government level. The Liberal Democrats have gained 12 councils. And the Green Party has won their first outright majority of a council for the first time, securing mid-Suffolk. Rishi Sunak has admitted the results are disappointing, while Sir Keir Starmer and Sir Ed Davey celebrated their wins.
It's always disappointing to lose hard-working Conservative councillors, their friends, their colleagues, and I'm so grateful to them for everything. What I am going to carry on doing is delivering on the people's priorities, halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the boats.
Same story in Plymouth, in Stoke, up in Middlesbrough. And these are the key battlegrounds as we go into the next election. And make no mistake, this means that we are on course for a Labour majority at the next election.
Fantastic results for the Liberal Democrats, groundbreaking results. People have lost trust with the Conservatives. They think they lack integrity, that they don't care about people, and they're just out of touch. So I think we've benefited from a positive vote for the Liberal Democrats and a vote from lifelong Conservatives who won't vote Conservative again.
On the eve of the King's coronation, the King and the Prince and Princess of Wales have greeted well-wishers on the Mall.
Congratulations, you King. You look much younger in the flesh. And best of luck for tomorrow.
King Charles made a surprise appearance to meet with some of the thousands gathered outside Buckingham Palace. William and Kate joined the King for the walkabout. They praised the party atmosphere and described the coronation as a great moment of celebration. The royalists who've been camping out hoping to catch a glimpse of history being made this weekend have described it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
We were literally just walking back to the hotel and then we just saw everybody cheering and came over and then saw the King.
And I got a shake of the hand.
You got to shake the hand.
Through the crowd and I got to shake her hand.
I think this is Britain at its best, you know. Everybody's nattering to everybody. There's no stiff upper lip. It's just lovely.
We just wanted to be a part of history and enjoy the you know, nobody does it better than the British, so we wanted to see all the excitement and be a part of it.
The leader of Russia's Wagner Group has threatened to withdraw his troops from Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine by Wednesday. The Russian mercenary force has been trying to capture the city for months. In a big setback for the Russian invasion, its leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, says his forces will have to pull out due to heavy losses unless they receive more ammunition. The World Health Organization has announced that COVID-19 is no longer a global health emergency. It's a step towards the end of a pandemic that has killed nearly 7 million people globally. The head of the WHO said countries shouldn't let down their guard, warning the virus is here to stay. You're up to date on GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now, though, it's back to Mark.
It's Coronation Eve and the countdown to the biggest constitutional moment of the century so far. On Mark Dolan tonight, in a special show live from Buckingham Palace, we've got the pundits, the royal experts, the journalists and the biographers. And we've got you, the great British public, for what is a night of anticipation, excitement and celebration. In my Take at 10, I'll be making the case for Queen Camilla. It's my view that she will be the jewel in the crown of this new monarchy. That's coming in just a second. Plus, we've got tomorrow's headlines hot off the press at exactly 10:30 sharp. And we will be joined by the US Queen of showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Scofield, and a man who knows the royals better than they know themselves, Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell. Plus, ex-top royal journalist Linda Jubilee, and they're all live with me here at the Palace. It's a cast of thousands, and I want your emails throughout. mark@gbnews.uk. In this hour, we'll be asking, has the public forgiven Charles for his treatment of Diana? Has William always been Charles's favourite? And is Charles too woke to be king? And here's another one. Is he too bloody old? We'll discuss that shortly. So, we've got ringside seats. It is the Coronation Countdown. Let's start with this. Romeo and Juliet, eat your heart out. Charles and Camilla is the ultimate story of romance and the very definition of forbidden love. It was the Queen who blocked their initial union because Camilla didn't have the most virginal of CVs. She's been around the block more often than a lost Uber driver. And as with any Shakespeare play, the seeds of tragedy were sown early on, with this doting couple torn apart by stifling royal protocol, leading instead to Charles and Diana's disastrously unhappy marriage, which was a shambles from the start. Now, many will never forgive Charles for his alleged adulterous affair with Camilla, but I think that's double standards, given that Diana at the time was herself shafting more people than a timeshare salesman. Following Diana's funeral, when Charles and Camilla officially came out as a couple, Camilla was public enemy number one, the most famous homewrecker on the planet. And this union between the two was about as welcome as a fart in an elevator. However, since then, Camilla hasn't put a foot wrong. She's taken the angry stares, the boos, the hisses and the judgmental glances with dignity, never once lashing out or telling her detractors where to go. Since day one, she has always put Charles first, which makes her the perfect person to be his queen. She has pursued her charitable causes, particularly for those impacted by the appalling crime of domestic abuse, with huge commitment and energy. People used to joke about Camilla being horse-like. What a terrible insult, and so far from the truth. She's a deeply elegant and attractive lady. Now, be clear, Charles has got his work cut out. He is 74 years of age, albeit a sprightly one. It's far from easy becoming king, particularly this late in life. If we're honest, He should probably be watering his geraniums at this moment. But fate has chosen for him a different path. And as we saw in the days after his mother Elizabeth's sad death, including the moment when Charles's pen exploded in his hand, do you remember that? Camilla was there to comfort and support him. A wise head, a caring partner, there to break the tension with a touch of humour or words of reassurance. That's Camilla. Behind every great man is a great woman. Well, I don't think Queen Camilla will be behind Charles. I think she'll be right there next to him, front and centre. And her great challenge is to support the king and fly the flag for Great Britain. I'm certain Camilla will do it with grace, good humour and care. Long live the king, absolutely, but long live the queen too. Now, don't forget, on his way to our lovely studio here at the Palace is Paul Burrell and top journalist Linda Jubilee. But with me for the hour is the jewel in the crown of Mark Dolan tonight, especially on Saturdays. It's the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting here in London, Kinsey Scofield. Kinsey, great to see you face to face.
That's some of the intro to my reel, you saying that. That's how important you are to me.
Well, vice versa, and to our viewers and listeners, we love checking in with you every Saturday night. When we talk about royal stories, we talk about American politics as well, and Joe Biden, all the rest of it.
Yes.
But no politics for the next couple of days. This is a royal celebration.
Absolutely. And normally I am watching you at home cackling at you, so it is so hard to sit next to you and not laugh out loud. That was an amazing monologue.
Oh, bless you. Well, I don't think there was anything remotely controversial in there.
Not
but,
at all.
Let's talk about...
Do you remember when Diana called her Rottweiler? It's not just horse face. She really took some tough hits.
Well,
Poor
that's
Camilla.
right. And this is why you struggle to reconcile this new royal marriage with what happened in the past, because you are a Diana loyalist. Your podcast is called To Die For Daily. Your website is todiefordaily.com.
Yeah.
And if I can get a little shot of this is the book, which is now a bestseller. And it is called R is for Revenge Dress.
Yes.
A Princess Diana inspired alphabet book for grown-ups, right? It's doing really well.
Thank you.
And you are in Team Diana. So do you struggle with my positive words about Camilla?
I don't, because I do think towards the end of Diana's life, she started to recognize that love, the authenticity between Charles and Camilla. In fact, they say that she said to Prince William, pursue that love, pursue that's true love. Obviously I'm hurt by the way that everything came to fruition, and it's why Diana's not here anymore, truly. But I respect their relationship, and I sincerely believe that they're soulmates, like you said in your monologue.
Yes, I mean, you're so knowledgeable about Princess Diana. You've loved her since you were a little girl. Can you give us a sense of the turmoil she went through, having to coexist with three people in that marriage, as she put it?
She was desperately in love with Prince Charles, and I do think that she was in love not only with Prince Charles, but the idea of being this princess that could inevitably become the queen one day. And, she knew she was beautiful and youthful and popular, and I think it ate her up inside, comparing herself to Camilla and struggling to determine what she had that Diana didn't. And, I mean, it literally did eat her up inside. She had multiple eating disorders and mental health issues. So I ache when I think about those instances, and I think that that's why you see Prince William so aggressively champion mental health today.
And who do you see as the villain of the piece here? Is it Camilla herself, or was it Charles for taking this mistress?
Oh, that's such a hard question, because
she was married to
Andrew Parker Bowles, but Andrew Parker Bowles never stopped dating.
Right, he was a philanderer, so there was no point her being loyal.
But he got an invite to the wedding, so good for him. The coronation. Yeah, the coronation. He got an invite to the coronation. Who's the bad guy? I do think that Charles knew that it was monarchy over everything, and when you take a mistress and reckless things start to happen, negative headlines, you are putting the monarchy in jeopardy. If I had to pick a bad guy, I hate to pick a bad guy, but I'd say Charles should know better, and we know that Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip sat down with him and tried to set him straight about that, and he chose to pursue love.
Have you forgiven Camilla?
I have forgiven Camilla, because I do think that The media was horrible to her at the time, and she kept quiet. She kept, she just stayed by Charles's side, and I think she was in it for the right reasons.
And she's played a blinder, really, since she came out publicly with Prince Charles. I can't think of a single gaffe, really.
No, I don't think so at all. I can think of Charles has had a few, but I think that she has stayed pretty low-key, and in doing so, I think a lot of people have gained respect for her.
Okay, well, look, what's your appraisal of Queen Camilla? Do you think she'll be a good queen? Do you share my enthusiasm for her reign? Is she your queen? Mark at gbnews.uk. Coming up, has the public forgiven Charles for his treatment of Diana? We'll kind of tap into a little bit more of that. Plus, live here in our outdoor studio at the Palace, I'm delighted to be welcoming Paul Burrell, Diana's former butler. More from Kinsey Scofield and top journalist Linda Jubilee as well. It's all happening, folks. See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing. We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope?
It's very much so.
And the big moral questions of the day.
I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight and the Coronation countdown. I can't settle my guests because they're just so full of things to say. There's so much chemistry. It is the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, a big star on this show, of course, and across lots of networks now, I'm pleased to say, Kinsey Scofield and another star, one of the kings of the jungle, and of course, a top former royal butler to Diana, the Princess of Wales, no less, Paul Burrell. Paul, great to see you.
It's good to be here.
In such rude health. We know you've been to hell and back with your health, and you're on the road to recovery. And here you are at the palace.
It's good to be back home.
Well,
this is my home for 11 years.
What is it like looking at your home and the
from
old
this
office?
side? Yeah. From this side, it looks different.
Have you spotted any dirty windows that need a polish?
I spotted tonight that my light isn't lit. My room isn't lit, so there's nobody home.
Can you see your room from the streets?
Oh, yes. Wow. It's on the top floor. You see that little white light in the top corner, on the very top floor?
Yes.
Count 3 in from there, and that's where I lived.
1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh, the stories you could
That's
tell.
not the room with a dartboard with Charles's face on it, is it?
Oh.
It's certainly a room with a view.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it. Do you miss those days working in the palace?
I do. I miss the people. I miss our late Queen. And of course this coronation's tinged with sadness for me because our Queen's not here. And my heart's torn all the time because of Princess Diana and the Queen and those incredible, unique, inspirational human beings that formed part of what we're going to see tomorrow, because they all have a place in Westminster Abbey, because William and Harry will be thinking of the Queen, their gran, and their mother, who should have been there. Charles would be thinking of, and even Camilla will be thinking of Diana, I'm sure.
Do my warm words about Camilla in my take at 10 stick in the craw for you a little, given what she put your beloved Diana through?
Well, Mark, listen, we're all older. Our lives have changed.
Speak to yourself, dear.
Yes. My life's changed. I'm now married to a man. I've moved forward. And so has the Prince of Wales and Camilla. They've moved forward. And we have to accept the fact that time marches on. We can't forget what happened in the past, and I can't because I was there. But I wish them well. I do, honestly, and Diana would wish them well. She wouldn't bear a grudge at all. She would have moved on in her life. So you see, for me, it's crossing a bridge. We have to cross that bridge with King Charles and Queen Camilla. Like it or not, we have to, because on the other side of that bridge is waiting King William and Queen Catherine, and then we can really celebrate. Notice the slight mute atmosphere here? There's excitement in the Mall, but if William and Kate were being crowned tomorrow, they'd be dancing in the streets. There'd be parties everywhere.
That's true.
Because I think part of Britain is thinking, well, they're a little bit old, and they're not going to be there for very long. Actually, what he's doing is giving William time to grow his family so that once Charles hands over the reins to William, he's able to ascend the throne with a grown family and have time to dedicate to the role.
So do you anticipate that Charles could hand over the reins to William when he's older?
I think it's very possible that maybe in 10 years' time, much the same as European royal families who are handing over to their heirs, I would think that Charles, in 10 years' time, will be quite old, and who knows, in good health. I mean, they're both in their 70s. They will be in their 80s. Wouldn't they like a retirement like Prince Philip had a retirement?
Nice, yeah.
So then William will be capable of actually ruling the country, and won't it be a wonderful sight? I hope I live long enough to see King William, Queen Catherine, Diana's son on the throne with his beautiful wife with that ring on a queen's finger.
Can I ask a question?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
We can feel you overflowing.
I'm sorry.
And understandably.
Is this okay? Is this okay? So I want to know, because I loved that you said that Diana would be forgiving, not seeking vengeance.
Yes.
Is there any part of you that feels like Harry and Meghan feel like they are continuing a game that Diana started with what they're doing right? Oh, really?
No, it's a very different game.
Oh my gosh.
Harry and Meghan's game is a very different game to here, because you see, Harry's abandoned his country,
Yes.
abandoned his family, abandoned his duty.
Yes.
Diana was very proud of her boys being
Proud of the monarchy.
proud of the monarchy, proud of her boys being royal princes, and she always thought it was Harry's duty to stand by his brother as he ascended the throne and to be there for him as his wingman. That's not happening. Quite the reverse is happening, and Diana would be appalled at the fact that there's this huge rift grown between the two boys. Incidentally, Harry isn't going to see anything of his family or his brother or his father at the coronation. That isn't the time or the place.
Right.
So there's no...
Do you think Harry should be
mending.
sticking around for a couple of sandwiches and a pint after the coronation tomorrow?
Well, he didn't do it after his grandmother's platinum jubilee. He was on the plane and gone home before she'd even left the balcony.
But what about that exclusive here on Mark Dolan tonight from Paul Burrell, a man who knows that it's just possible that King Charles in a decade's time could hand over the monarchy, the crown, to William. Do you see that happening, and your reaction?
My reaction is, you're so right, that people are excited about the future of the monarchy being William and Catherine, and I think you're seeing a lot of support for Charles and Camilla that's solely based on the fact that Charles's success equals William's success, and that's what we want. That's what we're looking forward to.
The general feeling in the country. We are going to wave our flags tomorrow because we're waving them for our king. Because we are monarchists, we're royalists, we want the royal family to survive. I think the character comes secondary.
You know Charles well. Will he make a good monarch? Has he got the right temperament? Is he up to the job?
Well, as Prince of Wales, of course, he had his finger in every pie. The environment, politics.
Family show, Paul.
Everything. Well, listen, he did. And as king, he will have to be muted. Because as king, he will not have to have an opinion.
But can he be muted? Will he hold it in?
Camilla is the one to do that. And I truly believe that she is the only person that can tell him no. Everybody else in his world says yes.
Yes.
Camilla doesn't care because this is the man she loves and he loves her.
Do you like Charles?
He's a good, kind man. He's a good, kind, genuine man. I think he's trying to straddle one foot in tradition and one foot in modernity. And that's a tightrope. And he's bound to come a cropper at times.
Did he treat you well when you served as Diana's butler?
Yes, he did. He found me a nice house on the Highgrove estate where I could live with my family and my children. He looked after me. But it came to a sticky end because I was serving two mistresses.
Right.
Diana left the front door of Highgrove on a Sunday afternoon, and Mrs. Parker Walls came in the back door at the same time.
And you were an honest man, and when you were asked questions, yes.
I was asked questions. It was difficult for me to be in that place and serve two mistresses and a master, and eventually the decision was made for me, and I came back to London. So answering your question, a good man. I remember the day when my little boy, Nick, he was only 4 years old, wandered through the garden. I'm stood at the front door with the Prince of Wales waiting to go on an official engagement in black tie, opening the Rolls-Royce door, and my little boy Nick brushed past Prince Charles and said, "Oh, you look smart, Prince Charles. Where are you going tonight?" And he rushed in the front door and up the stairs to play with William and Harry. And the Prince turned to me and said, "He's full of character, isn't he?"
And on that bombshell, I've just got a WhatsApp from the boss who's loving the show and has said, "Can you please tease live coverage on GB News from 6 a.m. tomorrow with Nigel Farage taking over at 10 a.m. for the best coverage on TV and radio?" And absolutely right, I agree with that. Coming up next, we've got the papers with big reaction from these two. Don't go anywhere.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
The Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight, and it is a countdown to the Coronation special. It's Coronation Eve. All the action tomorrow from 6 a.m. Nigel Farage taking over at 10 a.m. So excited. Keep it GB News on the radio, on TV all day long. We are your Coronation station, and it's exactly 10:30. So let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages, and let's get cracking with our first particular front page. It's the Express, and they lead with the following. We flash this one up. What a lovely front page that is. Day of Destiny, and that is just a gorgeous royal throne. I think they've got that right.
That's beautiful.
A picture says 1,000 words. Next up, let's have a look at the Daily Mail. And the Daily Mail splash with his Day of Destiny. There you go. Historic souvenir edition. And lovely. They've gone old school with the picture of Charles as the Prince of Wales. Next up we have the Mirror, and the Mirror lead with. Ooh. Oh, there you go. Now let me get my reading glasses on. He will not only wear the crown, he will bear the weight of history and the hopes of a nation. No pressure. Give the guy a break. He's barely started. It's almost like being a presenter on GB News. Next up we have the Sun newspaper. Oh, I love this one. This is great. It taps into our earlier conversation, which we're going to pick up with Linda Jubilee and with Kinsey Scofield. His and hers. There you go. Today, Britain will see in the coronation in style, with crowns for both the King and the Queen. I'm assuming those are the crowns and not some kind of reader offer for $12.99.
Marks and Spencer's.
But I think it's really nice that the Sun there has celebrated the couple, because it is the King and the Queen that will enjoy their coronation tomorrow. Next up, the Telegraph, and they lead with the following. I come not to be served, but to serve, says our new king, or will say tomorrow. The Times next. The King's Day of Destiny. They've got details of the order of service, with coverage that will expand across the next few days, with an 8-page official guide to the coronation. All the papers will be doing coronation specials, and many will be wise to keep those copies because they are going to be historic artefacts at some point. Okay, let's have a look at the Eye Weekend now. And Charles III in battle to secure the future of the monarchy. And we'll debate with my brilliant guests whether that can be done. The Guardian. Oh dear. They've given the coronation a bit of a wide berth. I mean, there's a picture of of the King looking furious at the top of the paper, Coronation of King Charles, but their main focus is the plight of the Conservatives. Do you remember them? Do you remember the Tory party? Well, crushing results for the Tories, say The Guardian. I will raise that political issue with Linda whilst we've got her, esteemed journalist that she is. And last but not least for now, the Daily Star. The King's coronation, sausages. This story takes some explaining. Irish wolfhound named Seamus, which is the name of my father, stars in a historic parade up the Mall. 130 million pints of beer will be drunk as a 3-day bender begins, but thousands of Brits jet off abroad to beat coronation fever. And those are your front pages. Let's bring in my wonderful guests. We have the Queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Scofield, normally down the line from Hollywood, California, but today with us at the Palace, and the doyen of journalism in this country, someone that's covered the royal beat, but many other beats as well. It's Linda Jubilee. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well.
Do you know Seamus? It's just come to me all of a sudden. I think Seamus is the mascot for the Irish Guards.
Oh, I see.
I think so.
Precious.
That's why he's there. I was trying to work out how they'd come up with that front page, and now I see what the tangential link might be.
That was the Daily Star with an Irish wolfhound, the King's coronation sausages, lovely stuff. But even the Star, getting into the spirit, free historic King Chaz pull-out inside.
That's typical Star. I think the Daily Star's on a roll, actually. Remember, it was the Daily Star that did the lettuce, which had the longest shelf life. Liz Truss or the lettuce.
Or Liz
I
Truss.
think it was the Star.
Well, it was. We shouldn't say King Chaz too loudly, because the Palace is just behind us.
I know, they're listening. Yeah.
But universally positive press, because tomorrow Fleet Street will be getting behind this all the way.
I think they're positive, but I don't think a lot of these front pages are iconic, really. One or two, there's a fantastic picture of the royal throne with the Scottish stone that goes underneath. Yeah. On the front page, I think, of the Express, and that's a really, really collector's item. But in the main, I think they're a little bit anodyne, these front pages. I don't think that they're iconic at all. They're not real collector's items. I'm hoping for better Sunday morning.
Well, you'll be too young to remember the 1977 Queen's, what was that, Silver Jubilee?
Oh no, I do remember it quite clearly.
But those royal souvenirs, they're not what they were back in the day, when the paper would be like a book, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're beautiful colour supplements and fantastic photographs from royal photographers like Arthur Edwards. I mean, really, really extraordinary memorabilia. Although I think they've been churning it out from the potteries in the Midlands, in the country. They've been turning out plates and mugs and all manner of goodies. So, yeah, I think it's going okay.
Charles, is he going to be any good as king?
I think he's going to be really, really good. And because he's been practising a long time, as his sister said this week, I think he will be especially good because of the effect of Camilla. I think that's why the Queen finally, not gave in, but finally supported the fact that she could be Queen, because of the way she would influence Charles and the way he kind of ruled the country. Because she has a very calming effect on him. They clearly have a very, very close relationship. I mean, in a sense, their relationship is one of the great love stories of the 20th century, actually. So I think that he will be a good king because of her, and I think that at least he will be someone who can actually gain traction with Gen Z and the millennials, because he cares about the environment.
Really?
The question is, how far will he try to intervene in politics? And I've got no doubt that he will. I don't think he'll stay clear of politics.
This is a perennial concern for many of my viewers and listeners.
It's a very big concern.
Who see Charles as sort of signed up to the net zero agenda, that he's in the pocket of the World Economic Forum. I don't know if any of that's true, but it's the impression many have that Charles is this sort of global corporate figure, Kinsey.
But would that attract the younger demo?
Oh, I think so, yeah, because they're all really concerned about the green agenda.
Yeah.
And everyone needs, I think, the younger voter, the younger constituent, if you like.
Well, and that's where they're polling negatively.
Yeah, that's where they're polling negatively.
Well, I mean, what are your feelings about the future of the monarchy under Charles? Can he shore up support for the monarchy?
I think he has to work quite hard to do that. I think that William will be a great king, and he has a great wife, but we've kind of got to get to that point across this reign with King Charles. And I don't think it's a very straightforward thing at all, because and in many ways that's why he slimmed down the actual service in the Abbey, because this whole thing is set against a really difficult economic climate with inflation that still hasn't been sorted. And we've seen the Conservatives have now lost, I think, more than 1,000 seats in the local election. Now, whether you vote left or whether you vote right, that kind of political turmoil is still very difficult for the country to deal with.
Well, indeed, and I anticipate at the next election, I've long said that I think Sunak is underestimated. I know that he's had an absolute nosebleed, more than a nosebleed, a borderline decapitation yesterday. But I still think that in our increasingly presidential system, I think when it comes to next year, if it's a choice between Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak running the country, I think the support will go back to the Tories to a degree, but maybe not decisively so.
No, I don't think so.
There could be a hung parliament. I mean, it's smart money would be on that.
I would say that.
At which point, the king could potentially have a role.
Yeah, he will be important because of the kind of fluidity of the situation.
Well, Keir Starmer might turn up at the palace and say, "Look, I haven't really got the numbers, boss."
No, he will be saying that.
Can you let me have a government, please?
Because one of the astonishing things about the results in the local elections, and I've been listening to them since 4 o'clock this morning because I just couldn't resist.
I want your life
on the radio. I know, I'm a sad woman. But at the end of the day, it isn't just that the Labour gains; it's the Lib Dem gains.
Yeah.
I mean, Windsor and Maidenhead went to the Lib Dem.
Tory central.
That was such a big surprise, I think. Although, I mean, there's a lot of seats coming in from Slough. You know, it's not a foregone conclusion that it's a Tory seat, but it's a disastrous reflection on what's going on at the moment. I agree with you that Rishi Sunak, I think, is taken very seriously by other international leaders. He is a very clever man, and I think he's doing far better than expected. But at the end of the day, you know, there's only so much he can do in the time he's got left. I mean, the only thing he's got going for him is that Keir Starmer doesn't resonate with the voter.
Well, yes, and I'm very clear. I try to study the emails I get sent to me on this show from listeners and viewers, and they can't stand Keir Starmer, they can't stand Sunak either, but I just wonder whether in a year's time, Sunak starts to look like the lesser of two evils. But, you know...
It's not enough time.
It's maybe not enough time. Speaking of not enough time, does Charles have enough time to be a great king?
Oh, look, I mean, how old is he now? He's in his
74.
74. His mother lived until she was how old? She was 96? 97. His grandmother lived until she was 101, I believe. So longevity runs in this family.
His father, 99, I think.
Yeah, so he could have 30 years on the throne. That's a long time.
Is there a problem with an old and decrepit king?
I don't think so.
What do you make of Paul Burrell's idea, speaking just on a show a few minutes ago, that Charles will likely hand over to, he'll abdicate to William in about 10 years' time?
I don't think so. Everyone talks about this. I mean, first of all, people were saying, actually, maybe the crown will just go straight to William. Now, that's it's constitutionally not possible for that to happen. And I don't think that Charles will abdicate. People don't abdicate.
Would his ego allow him?
No, he just won't.
No, waited this long for the gig.
It's also duty. He feels that this is his duty. He's a respectful... Right, yeah, I think that
you look at... The only one that abdicated was Edward VIII.
Who never wanted the job to begin with. He never wanted the job, no.
Do you think Charles wants this job?
I do, but I wanted to say to you, just listening, we keep talking about William. Now, you covered Diana extensively, and I've always read that there was a little bit of envy there. We talked in the green room about how Diana, everybody lined up to meet Diana, and nobody lined up to see Charles. Is there envy at all with the king, with all the hope and enthusiasm towards his son?
That is an interesting point, because envy, it's not just, if someone feels envy, they don't just feel it about one person, it's part of their character, it's part of how they feel about things. And I was saying earlier that I was a young 19-year-old trainee on the Western Mail in Cardiff when Charles and Diana came down for their first tour together, and it was really obvious then that all the traffic, all the people were on her side of the street, and there was no one on his side of the street, and that's when it started, that's when it became obvious.
Well, what do you think about Charles's temperament? I mean, do you think he's got a big ego? Is he thin-skinned? Is he insecure?
I think that he's got a temper. I think he's got a bad temper. I've heard people say that, and I think he finds it difficult to get it under control. I think he can be very incensed by media attention. That really does rile him sometimes, and that's why I'm saying that I believe that Camilla is a calming influence on him. I think that he will be a better king because of her.
But listen, you're no stranger to dropping the occasional truth bomb as well. You've covered the royal beat for many years, and you spoke to me in hushed tones during the break about Camilla. Well, we don't do hushed tones on this show. Okay, and I like to save the gold for my viewers and listeners, not for our brilliant crew. So what's your theory about Camilla? Because it's a theory that's shared by Tom Bauer, who was a guest on the show earlier.
I think she doesn't like a heavy workload. Can I put it that way?
Is Camilla work shy? Is she lazy?
I've heard it said. Yeah.
And how would that manifest itself? Just not wanting to turn
laid back and genuinely laid back.
So I guess in many ways it's an advantage. That's why she's such a kind of calming influence on the king.
Because for that reason.
But what is this a case that she pushes back, from what you've heard from your people, that she's pushed back on having her calendar filled up?
Oh, she definitely wouldn't like her calendar filled up. But I think there are causes that are quite close to her heart.
Puppies.
But she doesn't like the limelight. She's never sought it. She doesn't particularly, do the Diana thing, who could actually grab the focus of attention and really perform for the public. She's never been that way, and she's not interested in the paraphernalia. You look at Camilla's style. She looks good because the stylist has gone in there and made everything kind of clean-lined and perfect.
Right.
But she hasn't got a style the way Diana
Not
has.
like Diana has. And the only issue is, I mean, that's it. She's not the workaholic, perhaps. Tom Bauer, in his book Rebel King, alleges that she can't even be bothered to get dressed up, that she doesn't like all the fancy outfits.
She doesn't. That's what I'm saying. She doesn't like it. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Is that why the coronation is business attire?
How would you feel if actually she was just the people's queen and she pitched up, opened a hospital in her trackies and flip-flops?
I mean,
and a nice hooded top.
Oh no.
Oh no. Yeah, no, I don't think that's an option. But
dress down queen.
I agree with you. I think that's why she pursues things like her book club, animals. She might not like it, but she pursues things that she's passionate
likes those things,
about.
and frankly, Charles doesn't want the competition.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
Linda, what a thrill to have you. Come back and see us soon. The fabulous Linda Jubilee. Kinsey is going to stick around, and we'll be joined next by Paul Burrell with a simple question. 2 questions, in fact. Is Charles too woke to be king, and is he too old? We'll discuss that next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight, and it is the Coronation Countdown. We are here at the Palace in the company tonight of the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Scofield, and former butler to Diana, Princess of Wales, star of The Jungle, of course, and now back in rude health, the brilliant Paul Burrell. We've had the papers coming in, and lots of discussion across the 3 hours about Charles's politics. Is he too woke to be king?
Is he too woke to be king? That's a very interesting question, isn't it? He's going to have to follow his mother, and they're big shoes to fill. But he's also going to have to be relevant to his people and the Commonwealth. As I said before, it's a tightrope he has to walk. Is he too woke? Too awake? He has to be. Because, you know, the world is changing. The world is changing, and he has to address so many issues. And as you said before on the programme, you know, they're only there as long as the people want them to be there.
Although, should he be careful not to court public opinion, especially from the sort of more progressive left, perhaps, the so-called wokies? You know, I mean, if you look at, for example, slavery, the suggestion he might apologise for slavery, which opens a whole can of worms.
It does. And, you know, what's happened in the past, we should learn from those lessons and move forward. The king can't be apologising for everything during his reign. Should he then apologise for the pearls that came from Elizabeth I that are in the crown? Should he apologise for the Koh-i-Noor diamond? Should he apologise for taking the Elgin marbles? I mean, it doesn't stop.
In many ways, perhaps he should do what the Queen did, which is steer clear of that altogether.
Absolutely. Say nothing. Take a page from her book. And I think much of his reign, he will have to refer to his mother's reign of 70 years, which was profound. I mean, she was the beating heart of this nation. She had tremendous respect, and that's what he has to earn from the public and the people of this country, his people.
What about his temperament? Linda Jubilee was telling us that, that Charles has a fierce temper.
Yes, he does. Absolutely.
Is that going to be an issue, do you think?
No, because Camilla's there.
Right.
And that's his safety valve. You see, in the Charles and Diana days, they were so far apart in temperament, and in many ways, they didn't match, and their marriage was toxic at times. Camilla and Charles are much closer in age, and they've shared the same culture all their lives. So she is there, behind him, to gently put her hand on his shoulder and say, Charles, slow down. Charles, don't do that. Did you not see the episode when the pen was leaking, when he was signing his declaration?
Fabulous.
That's a slight view of the king's temper, just boiling, and then Camilla steps into the scene. It just calms down. That's what she's there for. And she is going to be a queen in the shadows, just gently coaxing him and pushing him back on the right track.
Do you think, we've talked earlier about her alleged reluctance to dress up and to have a full diary?
I don't think she really wants it. I don't.
So she wants...
I think he wants her to be queen.
That's interesting.
I think from the very beginning, he said to her, you know, you are going to be my queen. Come hell or high water, you are going to be my queen. That's the reward for standing by me. That's the reward for your love during my lifetime. You are the woman who was unnegotiable during the Queen's reign, even the Queen and Prince Philip said, we do not condone your extramarital affair with Camilla. In fact, a letter written by Prince Philip to Princess Diana said, Mama and I do not agree with this extramarital affair. In fact, his exact words were, Mama and I cannot understand for the life of us why you would prefer Camilla instead of you.
So therefore, for Camilla to become queen is the fulfilment of Charles's will.
Absolutely. 100%.
So how does he drag poor old Camilla along with him to all those hospital openings?
He won't. And you won't see her.
Is that right?
True. Because...
Will she be the part-time queen?
When this palace is refurbished...
PTQ.
Yes, when this palace is refurbished in 3 years' time, it will be complete, completely rewired, replumbed. The king will move in to the Queen's apartments.
The king will be replumbed? Careful.
No, he will move into the Queen's apartments.
Oh, I see.
I think Camilla will quite likely stay at Claret's house.
Wow.
She retains Raymill House in the Cotswolds. That's her life, her home, for her family. And she intends to pursue that part of her life. She will not be a full-time queen. You're right, Mark. She won't.
So it won't be a partnership. She won't be on his arm
24/7. Absolutely not. She will do her own thing. He will do his thing, and they will come together sometimes.
Philip, she ain't.
No, absolutely not. It's a thoroughly modern marriage. It's a marriage that actually comes together. Did you say
your
that?
reaction to that? Because I think that's fascinating insight that Camilla might be the part-time queen.
I'm fascinated by it too, but can I raise my hand? Can I ask one more question? I have one more question. So, during the Panorama interview, Diana says, she doesn't know if he's up for the job. I want to know, do you feel that that is not a fair assessment based on how he obtained that interview with Diana?
It's a fair assessment from Diana, Princess of Wales, to say that her husband may not be up for the top job, but she knew the man well.
Right.
17 years of marriage. She knew exactly his character.
Okay.
She knew it would be limiting for him.
Wow.
She knew that he was forever meddling in things that he shouldn't be. She knew that.
Right.
And she knew as king, he couldn't do that. Constitutionally, he can't interfere in politics or really anything. He's a figurehead. So he's going to be muted to a certain extent. That's going to be difficult for him.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, look, let's get the results of our poll. We've been asking you, is Charles too woke to be king? The public has spoken. We've got the results. And here they come. 43.7 say no, he's not too woke, but a majority, I'm afraid, of 56.3 say he is too woke, which is a real concern. Listen, let me tell you that we are kicking off our live coverage of the coronation tomorrow at exactly 6 a.m. Nigel Farage takes over at 10 a.m. for the very best coverage on TV, on radio. We've written a massive check to the Beeb for a lot of their beautiful pictures. So you're going to get BBC pictures, but with GB News attitude all day tomorrow. So you won't miss a thing. And I'm so excited. I'll be glued to the channel. Do make sure you make it your home, as you have done for the last few days. Thanks to our amazing crew here today who have worked so hard all week. My amazing guests, I'm delighted to say Kinsey and Paul, who have electric chemistry, are back tomorrow in the studio. Mike Porky Parry as well. And we'll be celebrating. It's going to be a party tomorrow night, the coronation party. I might even have a little beverage or two and disgrace myself on air. I want to thank you so much for your company tonight on the radio, on TV. And we're going to have massive fun next, because headliners are up with a brilliant comedic look at the day's big stories. And there's only one story in town, and it's the King.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope?
It's very much so.
And the big moral questions of the day. I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.